clips.
Yo! Well, that was super choppy, and now I look a little choppy, and I don't know why. But we're going to figure this out. First, this one's all about calc. And that's how we're going to roll. I got a couple guests on. We're going to bring them over. We're going to see who else joins the Teams meeting that I sent out to the Discord crowd. and a couple others via text. But let me switch over real quick. Boom. What's up, fellas?
What's going on?
Say hi. Introduce yourselves.
Hey, guys. I'm Frank Aaron.
And you do what?
I reef, man.
Yeah, right on. How about you, Rob?
Rob, I've got a 180-gallon reef tank. I'm one of those crazy Wisconsin reefers like Mahina Corals.
Yep. I had on a Minnesota shirt earlier today, and I know it's close, but I changed. Because that's a really cool story, bro. All right, so calc. Let's have you guys, if you don't mind, either one of you, run through what kind of calc setup you're using, what kind of calc setup you're looking to use, maybe, and then I want you to poke holes in everything I say, but then I'm going to run through like my spiel, how I feel about calc, and then we'll go from there. Is that cool?
Yep.
Sure, me.
All right, one of you's roll.
So I'm not 100% team calc milk yet. I've got a calc reactor, a fairly oversized one. I think it's like 6 or 7 gallons of a calc stirrer that I've maxed out my dose, and now I have to start bringing my pH down. So I brought my calcium reactor back online. So those two are kind of battling it out to keep me around 8.4.
Okay.
So I think from here on out, if my alk consumption goes up, I'm just going to dial back in the calc reactor, and I mean not the calc reactor, my calcium reactor, and kind of fight it out. But so far, everything's growing great. I mean, 8.5 pH.
Yeah.
Everything doesn't hurt.
Nope.
So it's pre-calc, I was like 7.9.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty bad, but it's pretty nice now.
Yeah, there is a substantial difference in pH. And the way I'm running, right, I have to be careful because it could very easily go over the top pH-wise. How about you, Rob?
Well, I've been experimenting on and off with slurry. I was actually dosing slurry for a little while after listening to you talk with Mahina on Reef Dudes. And I had been playing with Kalkwasser back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yep.
And even back then they were like, don't dose the cloudy stuff. And
Right.
I was kind of experimenting with that, not knowing what it was, but I was like, well, let's just try it and see what happens. So when you guys had mentioned it, it brought me way back. And since I've always been a calc fan, I was like, yeah, why not? Then my tank experienced a little bit of a crash and I lost a lot of corals. So my alk demand went down. So I had to stop doing that. But my passion for that hasn't desisted at all. So I'm going to be continuing along that journey as soon as I can get back on it. But right now I'm running in a vast calc stir, and I'm probably pushing in 2,700, 2,800 milliliters a day right now. But I'm also conducting slurry experiments on the side.
Saturated. Are you using the K1?
Yeah, the K1.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pushing.
Sorry, Frank.
I'm a big believer in using a doser to push fresh RO through the stir and not pump it through your ATO. You can much more accurately control your dosage with your alkalinity and calcium demands via that method. So I just use it to gravity overflow based off of how much RO water I push through from my ATO, and then whatever other evap is there, my Tunzi makes up the difference.
Yep, got it. And I think you bring up the main point that I've always tried to make with calc is you got to keep your ATO and your calc separate. Long time ago, right, the thing was to put calc in your ATO, and I was doing that, and then I was like, wait, what happens when the seasons change? Because I was watching my ATO, right, the amount that I was dosing, it was going to change. The humidity in my house is going to be 55% during the summer, and in the winter, it's going to drop to 30%, even with the tanks down in the basement. So if you are running calc in your ATO, you run the risk of absolutely dosing way, way more when the humidity is low in the house versus the way you're doing it, which is 2 separate doses.
Yeah, and if you want to even take it one step further, Jim, that's a great point. But unless you want to be chasing it seasonally,
yep.
And you dose it separately, you really want to take a look at, what does your tank evaporate during the low point of the year, right? The least amount, and then the high point. And then I've always picked that low point, and that's what I push through with my dose. And I say that's kind of my maximum replacement via evaporative, dosing.
Right.
For Kalkwasser. Now, granted, in the wintertime when everybody's evap typically goes up, you can chase it a lower, but it's really not what I call a sustainable solution for what you want as a steady level, right? So.
Yep. So
and then once you hit that, that's where your slurry comes in.
So Cam just raised a really good point. How are you both monitoring, Frank?
So right now I've got a Cage Guardian.
Yep.
And it's testing on the hour. I'm pretty much leveled off, so I'm going to back that down to probably once every 3 hours just to save on reagent.
Okay.
But I don't think there's any way I could have done this without a monitor. I mean, I was sitting there doing a freaking Hannah check every 30 minutes almost trying to
yeah.
pH. It was too much.
100%. Yeah. Automated testing is the way to go. Before I got into the automated testing, I was just using a Red Sea, and you couldn't test enough. And my results were, if you can't measure it, you can't control it. And this has been an axiom in my life for a long time.
Yep.
So I lucked out and I got my hands on an Alkatronic, and it's been a game changer.
Yeah.
Once things got steady, I only test 3 times a day, right? Unless I got a problem, then I just, it's you flip your app up and you just click, hey, I'll test every 3 hours instead of every 5 hours, 6 hours, whatever. So
yep.
the app is really good.
Adjust if you're low. Does it have?
Yeah, it can. It has one extra dosing pump in it. So I actually have it. I call it my backup dosing plan. So for some reason, my Versa takes a dump. It just sits there, and it's already sitting in a bottle of soda ash. And if my Versa goes offline, I'm covered. And I've let it on purposely go offline just to see how it does, and it does a great job. It brings it right in there, and it's not going to overspike. So like, let's say you had a crash and you lost 0.2 or 2 DKH, it's not going to try to dose 2 DKH right away.
Yep.
It'll keep it in there.
Same with the Cage Guardian. I've got it set just a little bit below what I'm dosing, so it probably once a day will bring me back up to my 7.5, which I run. So that way it's just steady, right? I don't have these peaks and valleys throughout the day.
Yep, that makes sense. So y'all probably know I'm using the KHD from GHL. All 3 of our devices are using the same process, the same technology. It's all pH based with an acid injection to get you where you need to be, somewhere around 4.5 pH. That's the trigger. So they're just paying attention to how much acid they're dropping in and then doing the math for us. We could do it manually, but that would suck, and I'm not going to do that. And I'm testing 2 times. Yeah, I'm testing
Math
2 times a day.
Excel.
Right. If I don't, go ahead.
For the budgeteers out there, the Cage Guardian sucks. They put some sort of dye in the reagent. So if you don't use their reagent, it'll brick you after X number of tests. Where I think both of you DIY your own reagent.
Is that is that for reals?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Alkatronic, that's what sold me on that was, upfront costs are one thing, that's an investment, but then the ongoing costs are really what's going to sink you in the long run. And right now I'm using a 0.1 normalized solution of sulfuric acid, $30 on Amazon for a gallon at a 4-to-1 ratio. I'll have 2 years of testing for $30, and it's amazing. It just 1 liter of this, 4 liters of your RO water, and I don't change that stuff for 6 months.
That's something you and I should talk about, Rob, too, because I think you are doing 4-to-1, but I think you're using more than the GHL. So ultimately, I think the cost per test is identical because you're using sulfuric, I'm using HCl, and it does basically the same thing.
Yeah, I think hydrochloric acid for the Alkatronic is interchangeable too.
Yep. Cool. I like this method of testing. I think it's super.
It's
reliable
cheap.
And cheap.
And the Alkatronic, it plugs. I know we got a lot of different control fans out there.
Yep.
I just got a PM1 control, got a BNC connector.
Yeah.
Right into that, and
right
I can see it on my Apex, and
yep.
I don't have to jump around.
And are you able to control off your data, or is it similar to the
Yeah,
hydros?
it's a readable, so
Okay.
all they really do is some fancy math and convert what really would be a pH reading, right, into a DKH reading.
Got it.
And it's just a factor, right? And then I could then address it via programming if I want. Now I haven't evolved to that point yet, but it's there.
Yeah, see, I dig that. Right now, and maybe that'll change, the hydros is just monitoring the alkatronic. It's not allowing you to do any programming off of that data. Hopefully that'll come, but for now it's just a monitor.
Yeah, so I've got mine set same way, BNC connector. My Apex is reading the DKH. So if for some reason I have an alk spike, my calcium reactor goes offline.
Yep.
So I just stop dosing to the calcium reactor. Everything can level back out and peak. So if I'm too low, the KH Guardian takes over and helps me out. If I'm too high, the calcium reactor cuts off, saves me then.
So are you using the Kalkwasser then to kind of recover some of that pH loss from the calcium reactor?
Exactly what I'm doing. So my main source of dosing is calc right now, and then I'm just supplementing it with the calcium reactor. It's going to bring me back down in pH world. I don't want to be out. We ever figure out what the max pH is before everything goes boom?
Well, I can tell you what I've hit, and nothing has gone boom. So maybe I've just been lucky, but I have absolutely hit 8.9.
Oh, I don't like to live that dangerously. I mean,
no, I didn't mean to.
Do your fingers tingle when you put them in the tank?
No, but I saw that and I was like, oh shit. So then I ran downstairs and I dosed some vinegar into the tank, because if your pH gets too high, you just throw some vinegar in there, your bacteria are going to be super happy.
Right.
And so that's a good safety measure. I do have on a doser vinegar just in case, set up as a safety.
That auto doses if the pH gets too high? You got it set up?
Yeah. Especially after that incident. But
yeah,
I'll absolutely hit 8.7 on a daily basis as long as the tank, and you've probably seen it, if something happens where you're getting that good, actually this way for you, and then something happens with the tank and then your pH dips a little lower than normal, then it takes a few days for it to work its way back up, right? That's what I've seen.
No, I've seen the same thing.
Okay. I think that's all part of the process.
Why it goes down. I haven't found a causation to that.
Yep.
It's always just a random day. For some reason, my pH is a little bit lower that day.
I had one yesterday.
One thing I also noticed between regular saturated calc dosing is, I mean, you do see a pH boost there, but I did notice that the calc slurry, even though you were hitting the same levels, from an alkalinity standpoint, I did see a little higher spike to my average tank pH when I was dosing slurry.
Yeah, slurry,
which was good.
It's going to hit you. It's coming at you, right?
It does. It does.
So we're all auto testing, but what are we doing for magnesium, right?
I'm just dosing it.
You're just dosing it?
Yeah, it's on a head.
I measure it once a month, and if it needs a little kick in the pants, and I haven't seen that my mag crashes out fast at all yet.
Actually, keep talking, and I'll go see the last time I tested mag, which has probably been 6 months.
Yeah. Same here. I'm just thinking I need to go test it. All my money's probably taken.
It's something, honestly, I test when I remember, and it averages out every month, every other month. And I find once in a while I might need to bump it 50 parts per million, which is half a gallon of solution.
Yep. June 27th. That's the last time I looked.
Did you do calcium that day too?
Oh, calcium. Yeah, that's the day I did calcium too.
Yeah.
Yeah, calcium is something I seldom check, and it just always seems to be right there. I check it every couple of weeks, maybe. But with the calc additions, I've seen it just stays right where it needs to.
Yeah.
So, Rob, you mentioned Versa.
Yep.
I know they're playing with things. I know they're playing with the distributed controller, where this then can be controlled via something. It's all going to be software based through maybe a light is going to make that happen.
If you buy into their ecosphere, sure.
If you buy into the ecosystem,
then you get Wi-Fi.
I'll be pissed if my Gen 4 Radeon with a Mobius chip can't control this pump over Wi-Fi when that level of Mobius is released. But how long has this pump been out and you still can't control it on Wi-Fi?
And it's still hard to get for some reason.
Yeah. What's that?
Bluetooth only?
Bluetooth only. If you're not in
that's
your
it.
house, you're not doing anything with this pump.
Yeah.
I don't know if people
I
know
stopped
that,
buying
but
them, and I've gone to the Skimmers now, X1 Pros.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What?
Yeah.
So, Kimura X1 Pro Wi-Fi. It's what, $150 from CoralView, which is really an impressive price given it would cost me $120 to bring it in from China. You could have gotten them lower before they start to get a little popular, but seriously, for $150, Wi-Fi control. So if you're out camping, this isn't going to do anything. This is going to do whatever it wants to do because you can't do anything about it. You got to send somebody over your house.
So the Versus now have taken a back seat, and they get to do things like dose bacteria, where I don't care if it, goes off the rails or something like that, or testing like I'm doing now with my calc slurry.
Yep.
It's been taking a back seat. Anything important is, the Kimura's taking over that.
So I bought this from Lynn, Reef Nerd, and she's like, that's why I sold it, because you can't have Wi-Fi. I was like, oh, now I know. But whatever, I'll keep it because that's what I do. It's when I was there, when I visited Ecotech, I held the pre-production model in my hand. I liked it. I was like, this is a kick-ass little pump. I like that you could put it on that 4-pump rail, and all that makes sense to me. But come on, make it Wi-Fi. I want to take it apart and see what the chip is. I haven't looked inside yet. Anything
China's
else?
giving that high money company a run for its money.
That's true, especially maybe even higher money now. They've been slow about this maybe announcement that was floating around there for a little while. I guess we'll see. Anything else before I jump into the craziness that I run?
Go for it.
Cool.
One thing I'll probably tag onto that because I'm kind of excited to talk about the manifold I'm doing.
You should be.
With the calc slurry, it's working. I've been doing some testing today, and I'm really excited about the results I've seen.
It looks sweet.
So go right into that. Talk about it.
So one of the things that I struggled with on anything that I do is I like, I always think about implementation and application across the board. There's a lot of different setups out there, and I respect everybody's approach to reefing. Like reef the F how you want, right?
Yep.
So some of us got small apartments, other ones got your presentation and the setup is every bit as important as everything else inside the tank to you. So with the way that slurry works now is you kind of got to get your bucket on top of it. It's particular about line diameter sizes, lengths, distances that it can be, the type of flow that you have to drip your effluent into. And I thought, boy, there's got to be, we talk about accessibility, and some way we got to get this thing out there that other people can use it in a variety of setups and not be so particular, and maybe get a little bit more lazy about it because then it's going to be a little bit more attractive to get to.
Agreed.
So I thought, instead of bringing calc to the tank, why don't we bring the tank to the calc, right? And so I hypothesized having like a turbulent type of manifold or reactor. Just for testing purposes, I 3D printed using PETG a turbulent reactor or a manifold. And then I just simply use a 1/4-inch Murloc fitting, and then just 2 1/2-inch NPT to 1/2-inch barbs for the in and out. And the idea is just to bring that water in using I'm just using a cheap $40 Eheim pump, $30 maybe. And it's just inject that. I'm using the Versa pump right now to test it. So then I used my calculator, my calc slurry calculator, and I said, well, let's see, I'm going to bump it up 2 DKH, and it was right in that range. So I've tested it at 2 milliliters per minute, and I've tested it at 5 milliliters per minute, and it was in that expected range. So it's not pre-sipping out, so that tells me it's mixing. So it's got to go through more testing. And the more I think about it, I don't know if Chris Clevin is on here tonight, but I actually want to see if I can get a hold of that and collaborate with him and build a PVC version. I want to see if he's willing to make an insertable turbulent flow nozzle to a 1-inch diameter PVC pipe, and we can weld something up, and then we could quickly distribute this to the people that are interested in it. We don't have to worry about 3D printers or failing or anything like that. So I knocked on his door earlier, but we'll see what he says.
I'm sure he's fixing to travel, but he's a wizard, as you've seen, and I'm sure.
Yeah, we've been we've been talking quite a bit offline.
Yeah,
on
cool.
late night chats.
Yeah, Chris is
So,
pretty cool.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
one of.
he's my kind of guy.
I think that really, whatever. It was cool that he was open to talk when he and I started talking about the nozzles and
Yeah.
and reintroducing him to the hobby. Lynn is totally his dealer. Lynn sends Chris corals all the time. It's pretty cool. He set up a tank just because he and I started talking again to reintroduce himself into the hobby and get back in. I thought that was pretty cool. You're essentially doing this.
I can't see you shifted a little. For some reason it's halfway cut off for me. Hold on.
Oh, that's interesting. So all you're doing is,
yeah, essentially like that, right?
It's that simple, right?
It's that simple, right? And then I had some geometry going on in the inside to encourage, turbulence for the water and the flow, and then try to have that vacuum draw, right?
Yep.
So it doesn't pool. Now that I'm proving that concept is legit and working, I figure with my PVC one, I've hypothesized for $15-20 we can put this thing together. Anybody can get it with crap we can get from Lowe's,
That's
Home
awesome.
Depot, and then it's out there accessible to everybody. Walk in a hardware store, here's your list of parts, go nuts.
I've been liking Chris's walkthrough into Lowe's
I
or the
know.
Depot that he's doing, right?
Yeah, he's inspired me. I'm working on some late night videos here in Chris Clevin style because they're just hilarious.
That's awesome. So Lynn just lost her mind that this is the Rob. The Rob from the Discord is the Rob here.
Oh, she didn't know that. Hey, Lynn.
All right, let me walk through my calc journey, if you don't mind. As far as I'm concerned, there's 4 different ways of calking. There's calking your ATO, which you should never do. And
friends don't let friends.
Right, and DC said it, right? Friends don't let friends put calc in their ATO. And what I've also said is if someone has told you to put calc in your ATO, they don't love you. So that's one way. Don't do that. Another way for me is to put, and I made a video of this once, where you put it in and you shake it up, and that's it. You put. I used to put 9 scoops, teaspoons. I'd put 9 teaspoons in this container. Every time it needed to be, when it got down to the bottom, I'd just go dump it out and then start back over. But 9 teaspoons, and this is an old whatever. You go to the store and you buy salt water in a jug. It's one of those jugs. And this was my saturated calc. I wouldn't stir it. I wouldn't move it. I wouldn't shake it. I shook it up once, and that's all I did. That was my saturated.
Yeah, it doesn't fall out of solution.
And Bulk Reef Supply talked about that, right? They had a relatively recent video where they said maybe the calc stir is not needed because you can do it this way. But this is ugly, right?
Right. It's totally legit. I can get a 50-gallon drum. I can get a 5-gallon jug. I can saturate it, or I could get a calc. It's just a more condensed, pretty version. They functionally do the same thing, and in some cases makes sense depending on your application, right?
Yeah, it totally. Let me move this down. It totally makes sense.
Different roads to the airport.
Because what I got the K1 sitting right here. I watched a video about it. The K1 makes perfect sense to me. If you are limited in space, or if you need something that looks a hell of a lot, which is really easy to do, looks better than this jug, right? If it's sitting in some living space, you don't want this. So that stir makes sense to me in that that's fed by your ATO. It's driven by a separate pump, and you just throw a scoop or 2 in there every so often. It's the every so often part that I have a hard time with, because how do you know when to refill it? But
I've got a highly sophisticated Sharpie that helps me know when to refill that.
You put a little line on the bottom?
I put a little line.
Okay.
Refill went below this line.
So Devin was playing with this too, and it looks like it's got a probe holder, so you could put a conductivity probe in there, which is what he's doing, which makes sense to me as well. But now you're introducing some technology that you may or may not want, but you can use conductivity to.
And it doesn't fall off the edge; it just drifts a little, and you can tell. So
yep,
it's
and Devin showed that in his data, which I thought was pretty cool. It just slowly starts going down, or you just roll Sharpie. So, in ATO, don't do that. Just shake it up in the jug. That's cool. The stir like this, it's a lot of money for what it is. That's where I get a little hung up. But it is prettier. and it does take
That
up less
slow-mo roller.
space, right? It does take up less space. And then there's slurry, which is it's a hybrid method of this and that stir. So I'm using a different kind of bucket, but you can totally use a bucket with a Jabo SLW. I'm using a 10. Maybe a 20 would be a better choice, but I kind of started with a 10, and now we're.
I got the 10 too, and I would agree because there gets to be a little bit of clumping on the bottom. I think my Jabo's 30 days behind yours, and it's still going.
Yeah, it's still going. I should have started with a 20, but I want to see how long that stupid Jabo is going to run. So I'm not changing. So I'm 149 days today. So what I do is, and you can do this in different concentrations. You can do this with saturated. You can do the 2 teaspoons per gallon thing. I'm doing 1 cup per gallon, and I mix it up in this. To the bottom of this line is 3 gallons, and then I throw in 3 cups of calc, and then I shake it up, and then I dump it into the bucket, which is what I'm always dosing from. That way I always have the same concentration in the dosed bucket. Calc itself. So, yeah, so slurry, you got to keep it moving. Rob said it. He's got a Jabo in there too. You always have to keep it moving, keeping it homogeneous. As soon as that Jabo stops working, and this is something I'm a little concerned about, if the Jabo stops, then all of that calc is going to drop to the bottom, and I'm going to be sucking up mad calc. So that's when.
Yeah, that's where your controllers come in handy. Especially, I'm not familiar with the GHL side of things, but I believe in distributed control and monitoring more than I do in centralized. But I have to I'm an Apex fan, not a fanboy. There's a difference. But I am. It has worked for me. Just simple power monitoring. Hey, if I'm not drawing power on this, give me an alert. Do something, right? Shut off that thing. Do something. There's a lot of controllers that can do that. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Basie's daddy mentions that a pH meter is decent for a calc stir. I'll challenge that because I don't know that it will give you the fidelity you need to understand what your saturation is. I think conductivity is probably a better measure.
I'd worry about calcification on that probe bulb too after a while.
Yep. Kalkwasser. So this is how I started. 2015, I started using 2 little fishies, and I've never thrown out this jug, and this is the jug that I just continue to refill. So I've gone 2 little fishies, a couple of these. I've done a whole bunch of the BRS stuff, and then I recently bought 50 pounds of Mississippi lime. That's kept in sealed buckets, and I refill this little bucket with that stuff. So that's what I'm using right now. The Mississippi lime for 50 pounds, that's 5.5 years of dosing at my current saturation for $110. That was on Amazon. It went up to $120. Then they sold out, but you can still find this stuff in various locations. You just get it shipped to you. There's others, right? There's Brightwell's or somebody, right? Brightwell has something.
Yeah, there's magnesium in it too, doesn't it?
Yeah. I don't know how that would... Go ahead.
They say for anybody out there, I'm not sure, who's all listening, but, maybe there's some people out there that aren't on the calc wagon yet. Maybe they are using, all for reef or 2-part or something like that.
Yep.
Your calc usage is definitely proportionate to your system volume. The mantra I always go to is 1.73 grams per liter is the basic solubility, right? And then for my math equation is 1.25% of your tank volume will get you 1.4 DKH. Now, if you want to do more or less, you just do a proportion ratio of that, right?
Talk about your calculator. You're going to make a web version, or you have?
No, I will.
Okay.
I wanted other people to test it out and give me some feedback because I don't want to put a fancier one out there that's wrong.
all of us are scared to turn off dosing for 24 hours.
That's a slick tool I'll never use, but I want to get some more people to get me feedback to make sure that it's the experiences across the board with the results, because the calculator is good for normal dosing as well as slurry. It will handle both, right? In my experience, I found it spot on for normal saturated dosing, and it's pretty close needs tweaking, I think, for the slurry, especially for some advanced users like you. You know,
What
that are rocking
what
2
percentage?
DK8.
Well, yeah, I'm over. I think I'm over. Well, if I'm dosing
Just to prove me
aminos,
wrong, you'd have to kill everything in your tank.
I was getting close to 3 DKH in 24 hours. I don't know where it stands right now. I could do a 12-hour drop with lights on and just see what it does, which may be able to get you close.
Yeah, right now it's on a spreadsheet. We can distribute it however you want, but I would like to get a web version out there that we can host easily enough. But I haven't gotten around to doing that yet. I just want to make sure that it works for everybody, so we can talk about how we can get it out there more and get feedback on it. But yeah, it's pretty easy. It's just I light up the green boxes that you got to fill in. You say I want to add this many DKH per day, or I just want to or this is my consumption per day. You know, with calc, like anything, or alkalinity, you have to know your consumption.
Yeah, good point. So we didn't really start there. We probably should mention that calc is a balanced dose for alkalinity and calcium. It's a single part. It's like all for reef before there was all for reef. It's a different stuff, right? That's formate. Is that right?
Because it's consumed in a ratio, it should be added in a ratio, right? And that's the brilliant thing about calc.
Yep, agreed. So if Rob mentioned it, you need to know what your 24-hour alkalinity drop is before you start doing any dosing whatsoever. Whether it's 2-part, all for reef, calc, anything. You have to know that. Once you have that number, you can use the various calculators, Rob's or others, and it'll tell you spot on how much you need to be dosing. And then you need to decide if you're, and this is where slurry came in, really, you need to decide if that amount of dose your tank can manage at the lowest level of evaporation during seasons, right? So during the summer, can my tank handle this half a gallon of calc, saturated calc, without going too high? That was my limit.
Right, because in a 100-gallon tank, if you're running 1 DKH consumption per day, you're gonna have to dose 1.12 gallons, and that'll get you 1.4. So a little less, 0.8 gallons, I think you'd have to dose.
So Rob mentioned, I think, or maybe Frank did, but you got to know your evaporation, you got to know your DKH. Both of those. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's where the benefit of calc milk comes in, right?
Yeah.
So once you max that out, you can dose a smaller amount of liquid, right? Because you're still having to top off, right?
I do top off. Yep.
Right. So you're barely dosing anything as far as volume goes with the calc milk compared to saturated calc, which would be gallons upon gallons.
Yeah. Or if we get this manifold out there, you could fill your 5-gallon pail up and never fill it again for the rest of the year, and just dose a micro amount.
Yeah, I like that.
So have you had a big spill with calc milk yet? Here's my biggest fear. My biggest fear is I forget something and the pump sprays calc at me, and that just scares the bejesus out of me.
So safety or cleanup, which one? Because we should talk about both.
Well, I violated both. I mean, the other day I wanted to see if my J-Bo was running, so I popped open the lid, stuck my hand down in the calc slurry, fished around for any clumps, and I pulled it out, and I went to doing something else, and I'd forgotten about it. And I looked down at my arm, and it was literally pasty white all the way up to my elbow.
Yeah, I've done that
I probably
too.
shouldn't have done that.
Whatever. What's the pH? The pH is 14, 15, somewhere around there.
14 or 15, right.
You just wipe your arm off and rinse it off, and I shouldn't do that, but whatever.
No, that's a bad idea.
I have done that.
I'm more worried about my eyes than anything.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because how many times you touch your eyes without thinking, and I wasn't thinking, because that was my reminder. I'm like, thank God I didn't touch my eyes.
So what about dry form safety?
Dry form safety, to me, I don't have a pump with a fan it could splash it at me, right?
Okay.
It's more of a controlled atmosphere of me, right? I'm doing this small, quote unquote, science experiment, right? I'm putting this together versus going to check on it and the pump comes off the magnet and sprays it in my face.
Yep.
It's not a huge concern, but it is a concern, especially if people are coming from 2-part where it's,
if I mix it a large volume, I'll put just a simple
mask.
dust mask on at home. Yeah, just a simple dust mask.
Yeah, you shouldn't breathe it. Whether you're using and this isn't talked about a whole lot, but whether you're using saturated or slurry, it doesn't really matter. Slurry, your exposure's a little bit more because you're scooping more stuff, you're making more dust. But you don't want to breathe this stuff. Just put on a mask. We all happen to have some maybe now. So it's kind of
when you're
easy
doing it alone, you won't lose your cool factor, right?
It's simple to throw a mask on. You'll start coughing. You'll know it's there. You certainly don't want to get sprayed in the eyes, whether it's saturated or slurry. That's bad. If you do spill or if you splash a little bit, come back in like 4 hours, and it's just this beautiful white, just dried. It's like, oh, I can tell where that went, and it went everywhere. Yep. Problems, challenges.
Yeah.
My setup?
Yeah, your setup. What you got? I mean, you're the one. You've been the master here. So.
Yeah. My setup is simply a 6-gallon bucket with a Jabo SLW10. That Jabo is always running. It's always mixing. And then I dose, and it's probably 9 feet of tubing or so. But I pull up from that bucket to the GHL doser. That doser is dosing 144 times a day.
What's the distance between your source and the input to your Jabo or your doser?
It's
so your feed line, your input line.
Tubing length is probably 5 feet.
5 feet, okay.
And then it's probably another 4 feet from the head to the overflow. So like
that's an important thing right now. Without anything else, I think we'd seen some on Humblefish. That one guy was having some issues, but he was going up the wall and he was having some solution issues. I think falling out of solution.
He was, and I think he was dosing too slow. So
that's not going to help, especially with the distance.
Yep, you gotta run the pump a little quicker. I think an easy way to balance that is just reduce your concentration. That's you can do that. So you can start it saturated and just start slowly adding more calc, especially for auto testing, because then you can figure that out pretty quickly. But moving the pump, moving the solution in the tubing faster is helpful. I wouldn't do this on like a Jabo doser. I wouldn't do that at all. Yeah. I wouldn't do it on a Comor X1, a regular Comor, because you're only going to do it 12 times a day. The speed would be okay, I suppose, but you're only going to be able to dose 12 times a day. The Comor,
that's what I'm hoping to get by, is that dosing rate.
Yep. The Comor Pro, the Comor X1 Pro will allow you to do 24 doses a day, which is a little better. And then the Pro T, you could do whatever you want and still see it.
The Versa does do that. I can do 24 doses a day. I do like the programming on that.
Yeah, the Versa was super easy to set up.
The Versa you can do continuous duty too, right?
You can.
Also, yes.
But it's going to be slow. So I don't know. I think the faster dosing helps with slurry. If you're doing just saturated, then the Versa makes a lot of sense to me.
Right.
In my head, it's mixing in the tank better because your drops are slowly driven. That's why, Rob,
That's why I'm doing this, because it opens up the field of application.
Because that's another thing about my calc stirrer. The end of my dosing line once a week is just a chunk of calc, right? It builds up because of the moisture around my sump. So as it's dosing, so having something like your manifold that's automatically, mixing that up. There's trouble.
Put your phone sideways, brother.
Oh
yeah.
I don't know how to move my face, so you're stuck with me. So you just got to peer over like Kilroy.
I just want to tell you, I look like I haven't showered and I've been around all day because I have. So I apologize.
We're rocking a similar look.
You're looking a little homeless, buddy.
Yeah, I mean I am. I'm dirty. I gotta tell you what I just got. Real quick to interrupt. Purple Tang, a sand sifting goby, 6-line wrasse, filed fish, a pair of like high-end clownfish, whatever, a couple other fish, 4 different anemones, and about 6 different rare high-end bounce mushrooms and zumas that are bouncing for $0. And about
where did you get your code?
and about 60 pounds of live rock. So I was pretty jacked. So anyways, I had to get it quick or else he was going to throw it out. So I went over there and got it.
Quite the haul.
That is a heck of a find.
Well, I was gonna
scooch
get
over a
yelled
little,
at.
Rob.
When
Scooch
he
to
sold it.
scooch to your right, Rob. Other way.
Oh boy.
Your other right. There we go.
Oh, hide that.
That's better.
There we go. How's that?
All right.
What up, Luca?
So I'm here. Hi guys.
Yeah.
Are we talking about Kalkwasser?
Yeah, this is all your fault.
All across the board,
Slurry's your fault.
Kalkwasser. Slurry's fault.
Oh, Jim, don't
What?
even tell me you're drinking the lemonades.
Hell yeah, I got a lemon. I got a little mango.
I got a little
Blueberry.
acai
I
and
haven't had that.
Put me to shame with my vitamin water.
But I have the pink phone of shame, which is the on-call phone. This is when IT gives a maintenance organization an on-call phone, and it shows up rose gold. I'm like, that's sassy. So I tell one of my maintenance guys, I was like, oh, I need a proper cover, bro.
That is properly.
He's
blamed
like,
up.
I got you, and he goes out and he buys that thing. So the container from which I'm dosing, it can be as simple as like a Murloc fitting, which I believe is the exact same thing on top of your Avast, to an acrylic tube off the bottom.
Not necessarily watertight, right?
Not watertight. The tube doesn't go all the way to the bottom of the container. The tube is off the bottom just a little bit. And then that's what you connect your tubing to. I love these little things. I always buy like 5 of them anytime I order from BRS.
Which I think is good to keep that line off the bottom a little bit in case you get, clumping or fall. Maybe it's, not quite as suspended as you'd like.
Agreed. Or your pump fails, right? So you got a little bit of a safety in there. Because then you start dosing saturated, and that's fine.
So I got a person that reached out to me that had a pump fail, and I think the biggest like I'm trying to do the right thing, but it doesn't work out, is when they put a too large of Jabo or however you say it, Jibo or whatever.
It's Jabo. That's good enough.
All right. If you put a too big a one, it'll create too much heat and it'll get too hot, and then you're going to precipitate out the hydroxide on the magnet, and it's going to lock up. So this dude had an SLW 30 in a
That's a big
2-gallon container. I bet you it was 120 degrees. I mean, it probably was hot. It fails. His line's all the way to the bottom. He's pumping in pure slurry to his tank.
Like
That's
a
chunks.
concrete mixer.
That's chunks. Yep.
For me, that's the biggest unthought of failure point.
We had touched on that a little bit earlier and talked about controllers and monitoring power at least, or in some fashion.
Or building in a little bit of a fail-safe for your pump dying.
Some kind of fail-safe, whatever that is, right?
And I think that, the electrical monitoring is absolutely one way to go. Keeping that tube off the bottom can save your ass, right? I mean, so what if you got a gallon or two in a 6-gallon bucket hanging out down the bottom that you're never going to reach? If the slurry falls out of suspension and it's just all chunky down at the bottom.
I mean, when you're talking about dosing anything, everything has the same level of danger,
risk.
Right?
Yeah,
so
agreed.
you can nuke your tank on 2-part just as nicely as you can on Cal.
That's a fun point because I was told that's not the case. I was like, what was said
really?
what was said? Yeah, you can. What was said about slurry was it was so dangerous. I was like, no. It's the same as anything else you're dosing in your tank. You dose a whole bunch of Brightwell aminos, everything's going to die.
Too much
right?
of a good thing is right.
Frank, what were you trying to say?
Yeah,
So
sorry.
what about failure, right? Winter's coming up. Your system goes down, that pump stops pumping, it falls out of solution. Will the Jabo bring it back, or is it, has anybody tested that yet?
Like, if the Jabo stops?
Actually, I haven't. That's a great point, Frank.
I have.
All right.
So, Frank,
I didn't
here's
think of
the
that.
deal. So Kalkwasser, so calcium hydroxide is very, very fine.
Yeah.
So it's, Jim and I like to use the word sassy a lot. So it's real sassy. And so when your pump turns back on, I actually did this. When your pump turns back on, it's going to take 12 hours to fully fluidize it all again. But we're talking about that last 10%, 15%. So in my experiment, I killed the power for an hour, put it back on. My alk dropped 0.3 of a point. And then throughout the next day, it was almost back to normal. But I got like, I've never met you before, Frank, but I'm super high tech on all my stuff. Like, I mean, I got a PVC pipe that I stir it up with if I lose power.
I get that. I'm just wondering if you're out of the house, right? You don't have your.
How long?
It'll be okay.
Yeah. How long did it take to fall out of solution in an hour? Or how much? I mean, did you get an idea? You know, like what hit the bottom?
It was clear. It was already clear. I could actually see the level, and I actually set my intake slurry line based on that. I put it about 2 inches above, and then
this is
I might
good
be
thinking.
really high tech, but I try to get stuff done quick. So I did that, and then I turned it back on, and I didn't do anything to it. And it slowly rose up. And then I did another experiment where I turned it off for 12 hours and ran the carbonic acid generator for a while. Like, kind of like my farewell voyage. It was like, hey man, I hope you have a great 12 hours because you are being removed from my system. And that time it took 2 days to refluidize.
With you being so high tech, I'm going to sell you a Sharpie.
What are those?
Hey, Northwest Concentrate sells what? A $30 bag? Is that the 50-pound bag for $30? Is that legit?
Yeah.
Holy
yeah, and then they charge you $60 for shipping.
Yeah.
But I got a new hack. So I haven't talked much about this. I should shut up. I always talk too much. But
Kyle brought this up. Kyle brought this up in the chat, and I appreciate that.
So I'm going to be going to someone that is very well known, had started some very high profile companies that no longer works there. And he has asked to be, remain nameless. But anyways, he makes stuff for aquaculture industry. Mm-hmm. And he makes saltless salt mix, meaning you buy the sodium chloride, save your ass on shipping. He has all the rest of it. It's all anhydrous. So if you add it too fast, it'll boil. Yep. So it's not for sale for the average hobbyist. But if you're techie, and basically, if you tell him that you know me and like you're on the same level, he'll be fine with it. Because I said we're a bunch of nerd scientists. But anyways, where I'm going with this is, I had to find high purity salt. And so I used to work for Cargill Salt for 10 years, actually. That's where I got my stripes in the industry. So I found a local distributor of Cargill Salt, and lo and behold, they have USP magnesium chloride. They have calcium hydroxide, but he didn't get back to me on what. It was very end of the day, Friday. So I'm guessing I'm going to be able to get calcium hydroxide local for $40 a bag, but then you're not paying $60 in shipping. And, so if this works out, I'm going to figure out how to post for people to find these things. Because if you search on the internet, you're not going to find it. I called someone I still know in Cargill Salt, and I'm like, yo, who's a distributor in Waukesha, Wisconsin? They're like, oh, Best Food Ingredients or whatever, and they basically sell in bulk to restaurants or even food manufacturers these ingredients. He might come back and say, hey, I got VitaCal for $14.99. Yep. And if that's a thing, hey, who else is in your network? How can I publish this stuff? So
Poor Man's Reef, who you know, Luca. He says, do you experience less alk consumption during lights off? I don't, but I'm running full reverse, so I kind of don't have lights off.
I think if all of it is on the same light cycle, you're going to have peaks and valleys. But to your point, Jim, I'm running. Am I still on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
I bet you he can't find his team zone.
We hear you, bro. He'll come back. But I'm gonna leave that stupid look on his face, just sitting right there.
I'm back.
You're back.
I'm back.
You're back. Now you're. Because you look silly for a minute, but then now you're back.
Yeah, well, I always look silly. I'm still in my football clothes. I smell like a locker room. I do believe if you have just one tank, you're going to see a peak and valley of elk throughout the day. But if you can reverse light cycle,
I didn't.
Really?
Yeah. It was very consistent.
Yeah, I'm seeing a slight one, like 0.2.
Okay.
Rob, how about you? Now you don't have many corals right now, right? You're kind of rebuilding.
Yeah, I'm rebuilding. I was just looking at my Alcatronic here, and it's slight. Like my drift right now is less than plus or minus 0.1 daily. I mean, it's like a flatlined EKG, but there is a slight tick, right? You know, in the evening, but it's so small, right? But maybe as that, you know, exponentially goes out there, you know, with consumption, you'll see that a little bigger, but it's pretty minor right now, but it's so steady. I mean, that's what I love about this. It's consistent. So
when my lights weren't on reverse light cycles, because I wanted to, I don't know, stress my power grid every day. I don't know. I saw crazy out consumption during the day. My system consumes almost a kilogram of calcium hydroxide a week. Actually, right now it is about a kilogram a week. So, you know, I think I might be in the extreme case, you know, where I got my growth rate. But I do believe people can run into pH problems. But I find a lot of people that are reaching out to me. It's like, hey, I'm still using my 2-part. And I'm like, no, phase it out.
Yep.
And then like the basic instructions, drip into a high flow area. Hey, Luca, my alk is at 3. Why isn't it working? Where are you dripping it? In a corner of my sump.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
No. Okay. Can you follow? I hate to say this, and Greg Carroll kind of got me onto this. He was like, Luca, that's an advanced reefer technique.
What is?
Calcium hydroxide, calc milk.
No.
And
not normal normal saturated calc is not advanced.
No, but calc milk. And hear me out on this.
All right.
He was talking about people's inability to follow critical directions. Here to show you in my inbox, person after person after person. It's like, hey, it's not working too well. And I'm like, okay, are you flowing between 10 and 20 mils per minute while you're dosing? Well, no, because I just had this doser, so I used it. Okay, that's wrong. Or it's like, are you doing the overflow like Jim you do, or I do in the sun? Nope. Oh yeah, and I plumbed it from the room over, and I go at 2 mils per minute. I don't know why it's not working.
Hey Luca.
So yeah.
I dosed at 2 mils per minute today, and it worked.
It won't for long.
It did. With my manifold.
With the manifold.
No,
I'm testing at manifold.
I'm saying it will for like about 2 weeks. It seems like, and then these people plug off.
Can we go back to the inexperienced reefer voice, because I like that.
Oh, so when you
goes right back into character.
When you said 4% calc milk, I went ahead and made 26, and my pump doesn't work. I'm just wondering why. So, anyways, that's my tidbit. I think it's, if you follow the instructions, and it's, you know, Jake was talking about this. There's methods. So calc milk is a method. And we're not a diabolical society that says you have to drip it this way and like those old methods. This is simply chemistry is real. Localized high pH that will cause precipitation is real. And the need to dose it in a certain range long term is real. You also have to do some maintenance. So
Yeah,
people
so
that
you either got to go into a high flow area in your sump, put a pump down there, a power head, or go to your, like I've even tested going down my primary drain of my bean animal. That works.
I agree, because most people have a decent return, but this one guy, he's like, yeah, I'm doing just like Jim does, and it's precipitating out. I'm like, can you just videotape your overflow? And I'm like, how are your corals living in this flow? It's like someone's peeing in that tank. Because they don't know how to size. So look, it all goes back to beginner stuff. They don't actually know how to size a pump because they don't understand head pressure and fitting losses and things like that. So they think they're getting 4 times turnover, but they're actually getting 10 gallons an hour flow rate because they didn't size properly.
And
so
what's their 24-hour drop too? Did they even take the time to look?
What?
Alkaline.
Bro, what are you talking about, man? I just
You got
corals.
me. What you just?
I got 4 live sales this weekend. You think I care about my tank like that?
Frog spawn.
Dudes, I just gotta show you my torch. I'm obsessed. This thing is bigger than my hand. I found LPS are going crazy with this calc milk. It's like my LPS growth rates are freaking nuts. I don't know if it's a correlation or whatever, but I sucked at LPS and softies and stuff, and now they're bonkers. I don't know if that's. I want to ask you guys: have you seen like super positive reaction from your LPS on this?
Yeah, before my crash, my girlfriend had bought me a cotton candy tip torch, and got it from New Wave Aquaria in Minnesota, and it had 2 split into 3 heads. That was in February. By May, it had 6 heads.
Oh wow!
It was just, and that's about the time that I was dosing calc slurry too.
Yep.
Right about that time. I had quite a few corals in there too. Yeah, but the LPS loved it. The frog spawn were going good, and it's just, they have a base skeleton too, right? So you want to see them split, put out more heads. They've got to and it's quite a large skeleton too, right?
I was reading something about the gut of an LPS coral and then the pH of its localized, its surroundings and stuff. I wonder. So it's not scientific though, because I've been dosing baby brine shrimp for a month now, and all my torches have gone into beast mode. My gonoporas are longer and stuff. So I don't know if it's calc milk. Is it the baby brine shrimp? Is it the new system with no detritus? And that's what sucks about reefing is everyone's like, is there a study? And it's like, try to isolate one thing in your tank.
Yep.
Yeah, when you got 4 projects going on, which one did it?
But Rob, your little nozzle thing, your calc slurry nozzle, that could have a Venturi effect that might keep this calc slurry jiggling a little bit, and it could stop the plugging at the end.
Well, that's what it is. I that's exactly how I designed it, was to have a siphon type, we want to call it Venturi type action, right? Is a constant pull, and pulling that through along there. That is absolutely something that I took into consideration. So
Frank's rocking. You're rocking saturated.
Yeah, I'm rocking saturated calc with my calcium reactor, but I'm 100% SPS, so I have no clue what it's doing for LPS.
What made you go saturated with the carbonic acid generator?
Well, actually, because my carbonic acid generator was dropping my pH. So I was going down Devin's route of, air exchanger.
Mm-hmm.
I live in an old St. Louis brick house that I can't cut a bunch of holes in the wall to do that.
I am this far from getting a quote.
Do it yourself.
I have an option.
You have an option?
Frank,
yeah, but keep going.
Keep going.
My pH was bottoming out. I was going through the uglies, right? That's actually how I found your stream. I was having SPS loss left and right, and I couldn't figure it out. You started talking about it, and someone else started talking about it. Anyway, so started chasing pH. Calc was the next step, right? So I started doing calc dosing through my ATO. Forgive me. Stopped that immediately. Got a calcium reactor.
Frank, can you go back and say,
Should be a 12-step.
so I was like dosing my ATO Kalkwasser, bro, and it was killing it.
I was killing it, man.
Right.
I was killing every-
Daggum.
Fortunately.
Daggum.
So anyway, as soon as you guys started doing the calc milk experiments, it just hit me like, dude, I should invert my whole system. I should do calc forward and then the calcium reactor as supplement.
Yep.
And until a month ago, my calcium reactor was completely offline until I started hitting a pH of 8.4, 8.5, and I started freaking out. So I brought my calcium reactor back online just to kind of level that out. So I brought it out to where I'm like peaking 0.5. And we were talking about
is that something you've just kind of like put there as a constant, or are you using a controller to say, hey, come online? Do you have some boundaries or some triggers?
Or continuous duty dosing pump on the calcium reactor.
Okay. So just got her dialed down.
Yeah. And if for some reason my out skyrockets, I turn off the solenoid to my CO2 reactor. I mean, my calcium reactor. So the CO2 stops dosing.
Yep.
Right. Which means it stops dissolving the medium.
Yep.
And then my alkalinity can come back down into phase. And once everything levels back out, everything comes back online.
See, I like what you're doing, right? I like that you're making saturated first, which is what I did with my 2-part. I always started saturated. Then I got to the point where I couldn't add any more water in my tank. I was like, well, hell. So then I'm going to add 2-part on top of that. Certainly not replace. I'm going to keep that saturated calc going. And that's what you're doing. And then it got to the point where Luca's like, just put more in there, dude.
But here, I've never hit the ceiling, right?
Yeah.
My ceiling is pH. So, Luca, I have the exact same coral troughs that you do, the hydroponic stuff. I have one of those in my basement.
Nice.
So, evap's no problem. I'm evaporating tons of water. I could keep going saturated calc for forever, it feels like. But that pH scares the crap out of me.
So, let's talk that. Like I said, I hit 8.9. Luca said you're going to nuke your tank at 8.8, so don't go higher than 8.7. Is there other advice? Is that a decent limit? Is 8.7 a decent limit?
Yeah, so I have a guy that I'm helping. It's actually Poor Man Reefs,
yep.
Sam's buddy, who didn't listen and then didn't put in a high flow. And so once you start the precipitation cycle, you're done. You're done. You got to stop it.
It'll just keep pulling out, and you'll see it everywhere.
Yeah. So, anyways, typically that gets up to 8.8, 8.9. I really think it might be 9.1, 9.2.
Okay.
And all hell breaks loose, and it just does a mass precipitation. And so my biggest advice is, Jim, you put vinegar in. That's super smart. But for someone that, this isn't to be mean. Someone that can't follow basic directions, you think they're going to be able to do vinegar? No. How about this? Do a huge ass water change and get some crashing shit out of there.
Water changes are your safest bet, and I think that it gets things in. I mean, there are some short muriatic acid. That's not the way to go, though. Yeah.
Just pour one out of your vinegar for your homies in the tank.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Or like
vodka.
Put a little
vodka.
But truly, this is vodka. So Frank, I want to ask you a question though. So, I guess not ask you a question, but for me, I got sick and tired of filling my calcium reactor, and then I calculated how much it cost to run, and then I was like, when Jim got so if you remember, this is an interesting path. Do you remember the concoctions I was whipping up, Jim?
That was a fancy fan, bro.
Taking fan motors and building.
On Instagram. Are you still using the box fan motor?
No, it was terrible.
Hey, if you're not failing, you're not trying.
Yeah. I have Jabo SOW series, and they employ the same bearing and shaft technology as Jim's SLW, which, interesting enough, Greg was talking about this to me at RAP. So the company that actually invented that type of a pump, we've never heard of, and I don't remember what it's called, and they sold their technology to Jabo and to AI. And so they're both making basically the same pump on the same technology. So it's pretty cool.
Huh.
But you know, you have to find a pump that has ceramic on ceramic. Ceramic will win against calcium hydroxide. It's one of the few things easily accessible that beats out calcium hydroxide in a hardness and abrasion
Right,
test.
because it's fine and it feels soft. Don't let that kid you. It's hard.
So one of the huge benefits of starting slurry is that I had this, I don't remember what they're called, but I have this little square rectangle looking skimmer. I don't skim. The lid's off and it just overflows all the time. I don't know why it's in there, but that used to clog up all the time. No more, because the calc sandpaper keeps that little tiny nozzle open.
Oh.
Uh-huh. That's totally from slurry. I would have to take that thing apart and clean it out once a month because I could see my pH drop because the skimmer would stop doing what it's doing. That hasn't happened since I started slurry. So any small orifice that's moving air or water in your tank is kept cleaner from slurry. I can hypothesize that.
Yeah.
Luke, are you skimming?
Oh yeah, I got a German skimmer. Toonsy, I'm telling you guys, Toonsy makes the best equipment. I am in love with Toonsy, so I bought their little skimmer. It uses all 24 watts. I never even tuned it. It kind of overflows all the time. But actually, I did tune it one day. It's awesome. It's awesome. But I got a reef. So for my 1,000 gallons, I got a reef Octopus 250, and I got the largest Toonsy they made because they make different sized bubbles. And then if you look at like hydrophobic, hydrophilic interactions, they will pull out different things. But then I just turned my Toonsy back to overflow, so it just rips.
Is it an external?
No, it's all internal.
Okay. I got a Reef Octopus 200 external. I like the bubbles in that much better than the internal. They're a little bit larger.
They're sassy.
Yeah, they're sassier.
That's cool.
Sure.
Well, after talking to Dr. Tim, the man himself at RAP, so can you imagine a doctor, a PhD of bacteria, and then a guy who professionally ferments bacteria for a living talking?
No, it sounds painful.
Did he have to shake you off his leg?
I had to shake him off my leg. You know what I mean? Because I was talking about prebiotics, postbiotics, whatever. But what he was telling me, and I'm going to go to this, is like, when you say this stuff, it makes a lot of sense. Kind of pisses me off. I didn't think of it, but okay. So what corals feed on in the wild is reefroids. Okay, sorry, bad joke. So what the corals feed on is bacteria mainly, and suspended detritus, which is actually a when bacteria kind of float around and then maybe they're kind of dying, they actually kind of hold on to each other, and so then it's like a little thing. You might have 3 species of bacteria, and this little polyp is grabbing it, and so Dr. Tim is like, we really think that coral eat a lot of bacteria. Here's some of our research. Here's why we think that. And then I said, Dr. Tim, I think all the amino acid products in the market are actually just prebiotics that the bacteria eat, and then the coral eat the bacteria. And he goes, and I said, yes, I know they can absorb some amino acids. I get that. But we started talking about yeast extracts and peptides and stuff. I'm like, tell me it's not the same. It's like the most expensive version of that. And he's like, most likely you're right. And he goes, if you test the pH of most of the amino acid stuff, it's very acidic because it's carbon dosing for bacteria.
It's super acidic.
Yeah.
So I went to Me Corals. So I'm working this shit. I got a triangle of love going on. So I go to Me Corals and I go, let me guess. You add either acetic acid vinegar or some other carbon source to your amino acids because it will preserve the amino acids because of the acidic function of amino acid. And secondly, your amino acids are just feeding the bacteria in the tank, and that's why you're putting carbon in there to feed more bacteria. And he goes, "Hey, you want to buy this for $20?" And I said, "Damn straight."
Me Corals,
I
is that
bought it.
guy that had that booth with he was selling like
Yep.
2-part additives? Oh my God, that was so funny. He just, I'm walking by his booth and I looked and I'm like, whatever, you know, he didn't seem like he had anything interesting. He's like, "Hey, would you like to save money on 2-part dosing?" Like, no, I'm like, I'm doing Kalkwasser. He's like, "But you'll hit that evaporation point." So I'm like, "No, I won't." He's like, "Yeah, you will." He's like, I'm like, "No, I won't." Like, "Why not?" I'm like, "Well, because I'm doing slurry." And he just does this. That's old school. And he had nothing to say. At that point, he just stopped selling.
So that guy though, his.
But it's a great point. I mean, he understood. I mean, you know, slurry has been done in the past, right? But he understood what it could do, right? And but he didn't. At that point, he started trying to sell 2-part additive dosing because he knows.
But what's interesting for me is, much like Captivate, that's the brand that I'm buying everything from now. His stuff is 3 to 4 times more concentrated, maybe 10 times. Do you realize for my 1,000-gallon system, I put in 25 milliliters, and that's the maximum dosage from his product.
You're such a size queen.
But dude, if I was doing Coral AB plus Coral whatever,
Oh yeah,
half a bottle.
Yep.
For my.
So
but
wait,
hey, it turned green, so I can check the flow profile of my tank.
That's what it's for.
That's the stuff Meckley's using, right?
Meckley is using Captivate, and
yep.
You know what? I think I'm learning a whole lot about Captivate. So, top 10 worst websites in the world. I think my son could design a better website in 5 minutes. In 5 minutes. However, guys, if you go on Captivate and figure out how to navigate this thing, it's going to take you a day to figure it out. You email him. If you're a hobbyist, he will still sell it to you. It'll have pretty labels instead of boring labels. Man, I'm talking trace elements for anywhere from 1/10 of the cost to 100th of the cost based on concentration. And it's incredibly ionically balanced. And I've given up. I'm not doing my trace elements anymore. I'm buying it from him because they're so good.
They got
like,
I need strontium. Strontium is the last thing I need to get off of the Brightwell wagon. And then I can be done with Brightwell.
Are these things you're mixing together? Are you dosing them, each individual element?
No, it's a mix. And
it is a mix.
When you buy his salt, he uses this to make the seawater ionic balance of the trace. Okay. And then he's formulated this with Chris for, Chaeto or algae scrubber growth. And when you can do a drop, 1 milliliter treats 500 gallons, and that milliliter costs about 70 cents. No, 7 cents. I can treat my tank for trace elements for 7 cents. If I was using Red Sea, the 4 things, I think it's $7 a day or something like that.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Hey, I have an alk and pH question. There's been a lot of time spent on like a DKH of like 9. What's your growth rate at 9 versus 7 versus 8 versus 10, that kind of thing? Was that pH impacting because a higher DKH generally raises pH? Or is it actually the DKH that we're concerning ourselves with, or was it the impact of the pH given the higher DKH? The reason I'm asking is because I'm running higher pH, right? My pH is somewhere between 8.3 to 8.7, 8.4 to 8.7. I never drop below 8.2. But my alkalinity is somewhere between 7.2 and 8.2. So I'm running a lower alkalinity with a higher pH.
Well, my question to you is, you can use the same study, and are you selling pH boosting products or are you selling alkalinity products? Because they'll both claim the same thing on the same study. And to your point, Jim, this is where when you really start diving deep into the numbers and really start thinking, what is it? How it's not even, we're trying to do one variable, but we're not, because they're both related.
Yep.
And to your point,
Yeah, pH and alkalinity are very interlinked.
unless you're doing calcium reactor and then the pH boost lists two-part, I don't really care to know. I know there's one you can do that doesn't really boost your pH. So like, to your point, I think back in the day when they were rocking that 12 to 13 alk, you know, I think it was because it would drive up pH. And with calc milk, you're driving up pH because you're scrubbing CO2 out. And, you know, I've told you this too, Jim, like I keep my alk at 8.2 now because number one, I don't need to go any higher. And my growth rates are straight up off the hook. So it's like, I don't really want it to grow. This is Greg Carroll this was very interesting. We were talking about your amino acids and your STN.
Yep.
He said it is common because it drives growth so well that you can actually, there's a theory that if you make a coral grows too fast, it actually becomes highly susceptible to RTN and STN.
The corals that were dying weren't the fast growers. My Montes are the ones that are growing like I've never seen before. I'm trying not to hype it. The Montes are freaking growing like crazy. The other ones, the ones that started to go, those weren't them.
So they weren't the acroporas?
No, there was one acropora that was slow grow. That was a red planet that was sitting up on the frag rack. Super slow grower for me. Wasn't doing anything. The one right next to it is perfectly healthy.
What were you saying, Frank, that you kind of had your head shaking there?
Thing to a T, right? So I'd have a millipora sitting right next to my Walt Disney. Millipora just vanished overnight. And it was right after using Brightwell. But, I mean, I think we were talking earlier when we were testing this. I don't think it was amino acid. I think it's a bacteria, right?
Yeah, so I think it's feeding the bacteria.
We're feeding these bad bacterias.
Yep.
So I want to get that aquabiomics test, right? I'm feeling pretty good right now.
So I tested when it was bad. So what I didn't have was an aquabiomics when I lost it back last winter. But this time when I reproduced the conditions, which was the addition of Brightwell coral aminos, and then I saw 2 corals go, then I took the aquabiomics and I sent that off, and we'll see what that shows. My assumption is it's going to show an increase of bad bacteria, but I don't know, right? I'm just guessing.
Do they have an indicator of pass? I mean, is there a gradation of pass fail on that test when you get it back?
They're going to tell you the level of pathogenetic. Is that the right word, Luca? Am I just making words up? It's just totally possible.
It sounds hype.
It's like
so use it.
Okay, bad bacteria. It should give me some gauge of good versus bad.
Okay.
So what I did, and I killed aminos and did a water change. I did it was like a 8-gallon water change for a 100-gallon system, and it was a setosa of all things. It stopped. It stopped dying. So it was red planet in the frag tank and a setosa in the display. Yeah, it's a Monty, but it wasn't growing like the plating Monties, nowhere near as fast. But that's an interesting point from Greg. I don't think that's it. I'm always going to I'm always going to look at the bacteria. So maybe it stressed out the coral, which allowed the bad bacteria to damage the coral. I don't know. I personally think it's something other than that.
So here's what I want a coral retailer, someone like Battle Corals, to not sell me a frag pack, sell me a live rock. Just bag it up and send me a live rock.
Yep.
Or cubes, or someone who has known good bacteria that's, rocking things up that can help me get out of that, right? So I'm going to the same LFSs here, getting the same corals, right? So my bacteria, like St. Louis, I'm sure we all have the same bacteria at this point, right?
Yep.
We're all sharing.
Yeah.
So how do I get good bacteria? And is that even a thing? Maybe it's just my tank is unwelcoming to good bacteria, but I think it'd be cool to be able to get some diversity.
I fully believe it. I mean, I can't obviously prove that with data, but I mean, from everything you guys have talked about and everything I've observed, and I fully believe that. I had a bad bacteria issue with my losses as well.
Vibrio.
Well, large water changes, stopped dosing aminos.
Yep.
I even treated my tank with ciprofloxacin.
Yep, me
and
too.
Gave it a good solid boot in the butt with that.
Yeah, that worked.
And now things are going good now.
And I had Vibrio identified. I sent it. There's a guy here local to me, and he came over when everything was dying, when I was going through the evil. He's like, "Can I come over and get some of your dying coral?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So he threw it under the scope, and he identified Vibrio. I mean, it was in there. I had crazy level of high bad bacteria, and I hit it with Cipro, and I hit it with everything, and I turned off all dosing, and essentially did a reset.
Yep.
And at some point the death just sort of stopped, and then it sat there for months not really doing anything, and then that's when I started dosing Tim's EcoBalance.
Yeah, I started with ProBio or PNS.
Yep.
That's what I'm trying. I don't know, I had to try something. So,
and I've stayed with EcoBalance. That's just the only bacterial product I'm dosing now, and that's a regular dose. That's a daily dose.
Can I talk like a beginner reefer? My cool voice. Hey, bro, why don't you say PNS real fast and see what happens? That's the worst name for a product ever. Penis. Oh yeah, I'm adding penis to my tank, dude. It's only like $20 for a new bottle of penis. I don't know. Can I throw a little something into this combo?
Yep.
So
didn't you just whip it out?
Yeah. I got penis in my fridge. So dude from Microbiomics is Bionomics, whatever it is. He's legit. And I've watched his interviews on as many places as I could. And he is super open, and he's like, we're just in the beginning stages of this.
Yep, totally.
And
was he at the show at RAP? Was he at RAP? Or is that something?
No. So he was talking about, different bacteria and what you feed, and skimmers most likely remove good bacteria, the ones that he has evidence of that, and that's what Dr. Tim also says. When I have two experts saying that, I'm going to kind of believe it. And so I had a sump that was like full of sand, and I had a lot of deep sand, and then my frag tanks weren't cleanable really, and I was getting all this detritus, and I was having I didn't have nearly as bad of an issue as Jim, but I was having SPS death. And so since switching over to my marijuana reservoirs and having way better flow, and really working on like kind of the aquaculture side of it now, my thoughts is that detritus is like, if you have a fermentation vessel and you don't have proper agitation, bad shit happens, right? Like Jim, that, we all know that. So I think that's part of it. I think what you feed is part of it. I will say that I do know Adam. He's in southern Wisconsin. I've been to his place.
Battle corals.
And he's lost a lot of corals from time to time. So even the studs of this industry are losing corals. And he has a network so he can repopulate if he should lose like one of his signature pieces. And when it boils down to it, we know so little. So that the study I read about brine shrimp.
Yep.
The winning study candidates were fed the 3,600 baby brine shrimp per liter. Still had a 40% mortality.
Mm-hmm. And
could you imagine doing a study on different types of corn? Be like, dude, this new fertilizer, man, it's awesome. We got a better yield. And only 40% of our crop died that year. we are terrible, like beyond terrible at growing corals. And I was watching the BRS thing on the aquaculture, and he's just like, yeah, man, we just, big operation, and this would be easy. We're gonna have cheaper corals from captivity. And I have a feeling that every single person that grows coral at scale is like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm dipping corals in ChemiClean, which we don't even know what antibiotic mixes we do, but there's weird stuff in there. We literally are like, all right, we're gonna get some iodine, some potassium chloride. We'll use some insecticide called Bayer. We'll use some of that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what else can we use? Okay, let's just dose those in a gallon. Let's shake these corals that are dying around, and if they don't die, it's a win. And so when I transferred my tanks, I had my corals in holding tanks for 4 days. Bit off a little bit more than I could chew, working 21-hour days. It was not enjoyable, but I'm a perfectionist, so I'm going to do it right. And I did have I had circulation and air for those corals, and I expected some of them to kind of die.
Yep.
And the fact is, we lost like maybe 8 pieces of coral total, and I'm talking about pieces like could be from here to there. And when we saw them STNing, we literally set up this is the most ignorant shit I've ever done. We had a bucket of ChemiClean, a bucket of iodine, and a bucket of Bayer, and we had a bucket in between of fresh salt water, and it was like whack-a-mole. Do, rinse, do, rinse, and then we put in Bayer, and we rinsed it. Here's the craziest part of it: all of them stopped dying. I didn't lose a single one. In fact, one huge colony the size of my hand. When you guys know when you get rapid STN, you're like, this thing's fucking done. When the skin's lifting and stuff.
Yep.
Stopped it in its tracks, and it's encrusted and it's thriving. That tells me that would be like taking your kid and be like, all right, son, we're going to spray some gasoline on you. You're going to rip some Coke, and we're going to stuff 10 enemas up your ass, and you'll be just fine. Don't worry. It'll work really good. Oh, by the way, and then after that, every week we're going to make you smoke a cigarette just to make sure there's no more eggs and red bugs inside of your lungs. Like that's where we're at. So like for me, we're so primitive on this.
Yep.
That we don't have a chance. It's like I was about to put a UV sterilizer in my tank, and I talked to Dr. Tim, and then I started like thinking about all this. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
What Tim said?
Tim said, he said, people that use UV sterilizers have good tanks. He said, however, I would bet if you could do a study, a tank with UV sterilizers and a tank like yours, I tell him how I turn off my skimmer and I feed baby brine shrimp. And he goes, I would guarantee all things the same, your growth rates and colors would trounce the UV tank.
Yeah. Too sterile,
and then UV, kills any bacteria that might be good.
Yep.
And also, if you have a high enough concentration, it kind of does like an ozone kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It's just an added investment. It's not ideal for everybody's setup, and it's just more complexity to the system that if you can do without it, why put it in?
Jeremy's on. He mentioned witch hazel. I've used witch hazel. I was dosing witch hazel to the tank. It's a good option if you're chasing a bacterial infection.
I've heard about that, but I've always wanted to learn more about it.
I mean, that's Luca's kitchen sink protocol. That's what it sounded like.
Most things on the market, is there a particular brand or grade that you want to stay away from and go towards, or is it pretty much all the same?
Get it from the drugstore. Get it from CVS or whatever.
Frank, have you used it?
Yeah. So Mike Paletta started talking.
Paletta had a good talk about it.
Yeah, that, and what was the freshwater?
He used Melifix.
I tried them both.
Yep.
All it did was destroy my skimmer for like a month. I did.
Oh, Melifix did. Oh yeah, you bubbled your ass off. That's what you did.
Like trying to get rid of chemicals.
But wherever your tank would smell delicious, because that Melaleuca oil is really nice.
But here's the problem. It was my STN thing. I identified pH was 7.3. So what did I have to take offline? My skimmer.
Yep.
Not 7.3, 7.9, but it was low. So what I had to do, I had to take off my skimmer, which is going to drop it even more. I have a basement sump. It's the middle of winter. Everything. My sump's next to my hot water heater, right?
Where you located?
I'm in St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis, okay, yeah. So keeping the windows open.
Remy just jumped on. There's another one of your St. Louis's.
Yeah, I saw him at Corner Reef the other day.
Uh-huh.
LFS. Anyway, so it just made my problem worse, right? Unfortunately, because there's a side effect to everything I put in my tank, unfortunately, that I don't see.
The big indicator for me when I was having the problem, when I was having the evil, was the drop in pH. My pH dropped because everything was dying. So, bringing it back a little bit to monitoring, and I'm going to have to bail in a little bit, I think, because I think homecoming's wrapping up at 10 o'clock, and I don't know if there's activities after, but we'll have to see. But having a pH monitor, whether it's a Pinpoint or a Milwaukee, I think that's really critical. If you don't have a controller, or auto testing, and all of us have auto testing, and we're all using the same method, you can do this without auto testing. It can be done. It's not ideal. But if you have a pH monitor, it'll put you in a little better position.
You know,
or make pH testing easy. I mean, another compromise would be a pH pen. That there are some decent ones out there for well under $100.
You know what's crazy though? Milwaukee still makes this like pH probe thingy with an outlet with a relay and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking like you could actually do all of this without a controller, but when you add up the equipment that you're going to buy, it'd probably be cheaper to get a controller.
Yep. And
so I'm going to miss T Drizzle from Neptune, but
T Drizzle.
like that. But I don't hate on the cost of an Apex. Number one, because I can get it at wholesale. But number two, man, when you start adding up all this random shit you need to buy to automate some of this stuff, it's actually a pretty good deal. And Jim, with those EB bars that are failing, I've always had my bars. Yeah, maybe. I've always had mine away from the water and away from the salt. And
it's got nothing to do with those failures. Got nothing to do with that.
Well, no, they don't. They don't. But also load balancing on those bars too, right? Yeah. So don't stick 600-watt heaters in them because
not
they're
that
only
either.
Breakers.
It's just this little.
Supply,
it's a
right?
damn buck. Yeah. Oh, now I'm gonna get hit.
I got some. Didn't they upgrade that recently? I mean, I've had my bars for a year.
Yeah, to this one. So all I'm doing is taking the new Meanwell and putting it in the old EB8s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Look, here's you want some Meanwells? I was like, send me your EB8s. I will fix them for the cost of shipping.
You're cold, you're tired, and you're hungry.
That's it. So there's
now I'm curious. Now
4 of them sitting here.
What's in there.
Let's go back to Calc Slurry for a second. So, Frank, I think we need to get you on Calc Slurry once your evaporation kind of maxes out. But I think here is the quintessential things that you have to do. Now, Rob, you are working on a prototype that could change the game.
I'm gonna ship you a prototype so you can start testing it.
I will. But to this day, besides Rob's quite frankly, patentable system, we do subscribe to short runs.
I got a job, man. I'm just here having fun.
Short runs, at least 10 mils a minute to keep it from plugging on a regular basis, between 2 and 6% calc slurry.
Stop. You have to stop. Know your DKH first.
Yes.
Know your daily consumption. Yep.
You have to have a wave maker sized correctly to your container.
Yep.
You have to have a reliable doser that you can tune and change it. And then you need to introduce it to an area of high flow that will disperse it, whether it is an overflow or a sump area with some wave makers, which, by the way, my sump has the same amount of agitation as my other tanks because I am going to a 0 detritus system. So it's actually free for me because I have gyres on my sump.
Big power heads in every section that moves that water around.
Yep. And if you buy food grade calcium hydroxide. You have a sealed container, reasonably sealed. You don't have to have reasonably sealed, and you reasonably seal the bag of calcium hydroxide that you're using.
Put it in a sealed bucket. Put it in a bucket with a gasket.
And
with
then take a
seal.
smaller portion out that you'll.
Yeah, well, Jim, that's our farmer life, so it's not everyone.
I love those buckets, man. Those little screw top seal buckets.
Yeah, freaking. But if you,
Well, that's the thing. I mean, get around with your local reefers, and you can split up a bag.
Yeah, totally.
Between 3-4 people, I mean, that's gonna. Now you're talking, you know.
And you know, Rob, like imagine like a club, they could buy like 6 of them and ship it freight, and now your shipping goes from $60 a bag to like $10 a bag. But if you do those simple things, and you have a way to stop runaways, like you should for any dosing, nitrates, phosphate, 2-part, you know, amino acids, whatever you're dosing, you're done.
Yep.
It is. We have proven this is as easy as anything else, and it is the cheapest. It does not create salinity issues, and to Jim's point, you're probably gonna have to buy some strontium chloride. You call up Captivate. They have anhydrous, high-grade strontium chloride for extremely reasonable prices.
Outside of the trace elements, I've stopped dosing all magic potions. So if I need nitrates, you know, sodium or potassium, or phosphates, sodium or potassium, or if I'm feeling lazy, I dose some reefroids.
My question is, what's the value for me?
What's
right? I'm team milk. I'm just not doing it yet. But what if I don't saturate out, right? What is why would I get, is there a benefit that I'm missing other than, you know, the pH boost, right? Compared to my current system? Because I'm using the calcium reactor as my failsafe, right? As my, oh shit.
Yeah, I don't think that this is a push that it's a universal solution that you should go to, right? It's something that can remove a barrier that hits, right? That's economical and previously thought not scalable, but we're showing otherwise.
Agreed.
We need a pretty video of a pretty model, you know, going through the steps of calc milk, right?
I think I'm gonna do it. I've been talking about drawing it and just saying this, making drawings and boom, boom, boom. This is as simple as this, and it's gonna have all the things in it. I agree.
But he said pretty.
I said pretty model.
Oh yeah, my son will probably do
that. We're not talking about the poster boy of pretty here.
So Frank, I think when your SPS density gets to the point, I was evaporating 22 gallons of water a day in winter, and I couldn't keep up with ALK with my saturated calc.
Right.
And then my problem is when the evaporation slowed because we had a rain come in or something, it would screw everything up. So for me, it's easier to do it, but you have to have density. So like Rob, you're building your tanks density. Frank, it sounds like you're on the same path. If, in my personal humble opinion, if you can run your system off of saturated calc, you have a lightly growing tank.
Yeah.
Because even with all the evaporation in the world, you know, you live in St. Louis, those are humid summers. And so the fact that you weren't maxed out and you could still do it, you still have room to grow. When you get to the point, though, what's exciting is then I would recommend just turning the calcium reactor off, going all calc slurry, but do 3% or something like that. And then forget that calcium reactor. I mean, the calcium reactor is, the media is expensive. The CO2 right now, go buy that. $100 for like.
And you have a potential rocket next to your tank.
It's just a little rocket.
Just a little.
Hey,
it only goes through a couple
can we
walls.
talk about calc slurry being an advanced method? If saturated is an advanced, right? Because it's not. We're comfortable with saturated being a simple method.
Yes.
Then
it's a simple method. I honestly think it's not an advanced concept, right? Because it's just more dense, right? But the application has some nuances that aren't generally accessible to everybody's setup, and that's what I think. I think these things are solvable, right? And I'm not saying they're complex, but if we want to do some weighted comparisons, be saying what I got to do to set up for normal saturated calc. Well, I have to have an IV bag and a tube, right? And then this other one. So the application has a little bit more to it. I wouldn't call it advanced, but it's certainly not entry level. If this is your first reef tank, start with normal saturated. You should anyways, because you're just getting on board,
yep.
right? It's then when you start to see that light you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, where hey, I'm going to hit this limit. Now I got to look for something else.
That's just the progress. I see it as a progression, right? You start saturated, yes. And then instead of throwing 2 teaspoons, you throw 3 or you throw 4. But as long as you keep it mixing, because that's when you throw the J-bow in,
right?
Then you could just slowly work your way up.
And meanwhile, I'm just going to keep working on leveling the playing field for the application side of things.
Agreed.
What you could also transition to is the like Reef Dudes, who just does a kind of milky saturated calc. That'll transition you.
I've already got a stirrer, right? I have a stirrer that I'm only stirring once an hour.
Yep.
So as my demand goes up, I can stir that constantly, right?
Right. So instead of 4%, you're at like 0.25%.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's also an old school, I think, like 1980s calc stirrer.
Yeah, it's skim milk. Yeah.
All right. So, all right, Luca, you're gonna do those old Red Sea, those old school Red Sea videos that were all drawn with animation. So you'll do that to make it super simple slurry.
Yeah. Yep. And then, I guess at that point, if you can't follow directions, does it make it advanced just because people can't follow directions? No, I think that's a personal choice to think you know more than you know and really royally fuck up your tank.
Should you be reefing?
Counterpoint here, dude. I've been doing it for 7 years. I don't think this is advanced. It's just not documented, right? I sat in my house through lockdown, watching videos and learning methods.
Right. That's what we're doing here more and more, is sharing information every day.
I don't think it's advanced. I just don't think it's documented. It's not, there's not a knowledge piece out there other than these streams or, some write-ups for, idiots like me who don't read.
Or you just had a lot of thought leaders too, shying people away from this stuff too, right?
That happens.
They're keeping in the goalposts here, right? So let's just kick down these goalposts and then open it up to some different ideas, right?
That's a good point.
Because we've had some hurting going on.
For sure, I have one video that goes over everything. It's Kalkwasser. It's actually my most viewed, shared video, and literally I go over everything. But it's a talking point, so you do have to take notes. But
it's a teaser. It's just a teaser. It's not.
There's 5 things you need to do, but I think it's all valid points, and I think it's real, and I think I want to hit. We should hit on the one thing. Okay, so the reef tax is going well. We're increasing margins.
Yep.
And here comes these assholes.
Tea party.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I'm an asshole.
Yeah. So Frank, hear me out.
Somebody will clip that.
I have friends that are assholes.
So before Jim and I really started talking about influencers, the percentage of influencers that put paid, this is a paid advertisement before we started going on it, was about 2%, and now I would say the majority of them are posting this is a paid advertisement.
There's a couple who aren't, but
yeah, there's a couple that sure aren't, but most of them are.
Yep.
There's no other correlation between we started talking about this and it started happening, because we were right. You're being paid. You're supposed to claim this. I mean, the U.S. government, I'm not making this up. The U.S. government says you should be taxed on that shit. So that's one. And then these 2 assholes that are pissing people off about influencers are now going to find the cheapest way to do alkalinity, which is the biggest continuous revenue generator for most of these companies, besides salt and frozen food. So
with $150 pump.
Before Coralview smartened up and cut our supply out.
Well, no, that's their price. They're $150, and that's not bad. It was $120 when I bought mine.
It's a good brand, but so I think we have to weigh that in. And I actually, I've come to peace with influencers because I think anyone that's genuinely caring about this industry, and I talked to Greg and Brandy, and they care. They care. They really care. They're good people. I support them. That's good. That is modern marketing, and they're claiming it. So I think that's good. And of course, they might differ a little bit on us because they know that if BRS doesn't, it's not good for BRS, and they're part of BRS's team. That's fine. That's just like I'm not part of Mississippi Lime's team, but if I was, I would be rooting for them. I'd want to make sure they're successful. It's just human nature. So I don't get mad at any of them.
Yeah.
I mean,
At the end of the day, there's always going to be noise in the environment. So you just got to be true to yourself. Look to who inspires you. It's not about influencing; it's about inspiring. And then build that community up and share that information out there and help each other succeed, right? And then pick each other up when you fail.
That's holistic. That's holistic type shit. I like that.
I'm gonna leave it. That's
Except
we're
vitamin
done.
water.
That's it. I'm letting that go. So Rob is pimping vitamin water, fine, but then he just rolls in here with a whole lot of you preached it. That was it. I think, and you mentioned it. Find the people that matter, right? Find the people to you, not not to everybody.
There's no one right answer out there.
Right. Find the people that are going to say things that don't necessarily agree with the way you think. Find those that will challenge your opinion.
Yeah, respectful challenging is good.
Agreed. Find those who will also support your opinion, because I think you can learn from them, because then maybe they have a little more experience, right? That's why Luca was a big one. When I started going more into calc, he's like, yeah, think about this. I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about this. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to think about it for a little while I stare at my super dirty fish tank. Right? And things start making sense. So find those people who will. There's a thing that
there's a bunch of those people on his Discord channel, by the way.
Appreciated. I appreciate that. And there are some amazing people. I'm the dumb guy in the room, and I love that. There's something that people say that pisses me off. If you know, you know. You know what? Suck it. If you know, share. Yeah. Not if you know, no. There. I'm done ranting. So Rob went really positive, and I took it the other way.
So
it's a balance, Jim.
So what's interesting to me is, the influencers are going to be, influencers are everywhere, and they're not just like paid BRS influencers.
Right.
But I think really it's like, okay, so, if someone got upset, or whatever, was perturbed, so they posted that. But also, we got to know that it's Instagram, it's internet, and it's having a little bit of fun too, being sassy. So I would say that all of us are sassy, and then, all the influencers are sassy too. But when you really boil it down and you start hashing stuff out, to your point, I learned a ton from the influencers at Rap, because they're opposite of Luca. Here comes the freefluencer.
Yep.
Oh, I'm going to be selling lights whenever I can get them in this country, all this good stuff. And here are these dudes, they're well respected. They know everyone in the industry, and they love that industry. So like, why wouldn't they like that? Right. And I respect that. And it was really cool to hear their opinions on lights, for example. And it was interesting. He's like, I like radions.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is my passion, and I don't give a shit about price. And he goes, and I know how to set it up so I can take pictures and it can look pretty.
Yep.
And he goes, and I'm growing coral for a living. And I was telling him that, like, my lights I envision are going to be sold to a lot of aquaculture facilities. And he goes, that's where you're going to kill it. You're going to kill it. But he goes, you're also going to kill it for people who want simple lighting. So it's like there's no wrong answer. And I think that's where I hear you, Jim. And like, at first you tell me, like, find people that don't share your opinion and stuff. And I'm like, I don't want that stress, but it's actually not stress anymore, because I don't take it personal. I actually ask myself, why is that person saying that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You stop and you think about it.
And then ask them.
Yeah.
And they tell you, oh, wow. All right.
If they're coming from personal experience, not just regurgitated data, that makes all the difference to me. If you're going to tell me this, please have it be personal experience. just sharing something that you heard over
parroting some stuff doesn't necessarily relate to helpful.
It's not going to work, because when I start asking questions, that falls apart pretty quickly. Just
to me though, we should start naming names, right, of the people that are doing it right. Like, forget the guys that aren't calling this stuff out. Those people who are doing it right. I look at like the tech sphere, right? So I like MKBHD, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
Tells you every time he posts a video, but keeps me engaged.
Yep.
And part of the influencers that I like is they've kept me in this hobby, right? I go through a lull. There's a little bit of the entertainment side that's like, oh, there's a new idea or a new thought or a new person. Like this aquabiomics dude that came out. Like, I was not thinking of bacteria, but now we have a new guy that's hitting up, the influencer sphere, doing all these live streams. Yeah. So now I have another thought thread to go through. So, like, I get the, influencers kind of suck sometimes, but to me, it's like a pretty good part of the hobby of keeping me engaged and keeping me want to change. I mean, calc milk, right? Hashtag calc milk got me more engaged, got me to flip dosing, right? Calc heavy intake. So, I mean, like, this is what keeps this industry progressing, right?
This is just one thing. I mean, there's so much low-hanging fruit to be had out there,
Oh, sure.
Agree.
And then everybody can bring something to the table, and before you know it.
Totally. Like life, right? You're not going to agree with everybody. You're not going to get along with everybody. But listen to the opinions that you don't necessarily agree with. There's going to be value in there.
Yes.
And just because you have just because it says paid advertisement, whatever, or this is a paid influencer, doesn't necessarily make them bad.
Sure.
Pay attention to the personalities. Pay attention to the message. You can absolutely see the patterns in the messages, and you will see those that can't support being.
Who paid you in the super chat today, Jim?
It was up there. I said thank you.
One of the good ones.
It just depends who you ask, right?
Yeah. So speaking of influencers, and I'm sure I'll be happy to plaster it all over Instagram when Luca's lights come out. Luca, how many of those lights am I going to need? I have the same, weed trough you do. How many do I need from an SPS?
It's going to be ridiculous. It's like, I think you could do, based on my testing, I'm making the 6-foot version for those troughs. I'm the only person that has a 6 foot out besides Reef, right?
Get some up so we can see the combinations so we know what to pick.
Yeah, well, so guys, you see this tank I made back here? It's exactly 6 foot long, 28 inches wide. And that's where my showcase, I'm going to grow a bunch of coral in there. I'm going to do like a PVC suspended grow system. But so I don't answer questions good. I'm sorry. It'd be 1-to-1 Mezzo Blue to Reef Crest Daylight, or Mezzo Blue, Reef Crest, Mezzo Blue, Tropic Sun, blah, blah, blah. So on the 6 foot tank, to get pure, almost all SPS growing, I put 4 4-footers over it, and it was rocking 500 in the middle. So
okay. I'm replacing T5, right? So this is going to be my swap, right?
So Frank, that's my motivation is, okay, you want to talk about someone that pissed me off, first of all? It was Jim fucking talking about how
I did. I was talking smack about bulbs. That's how Luke and I started talking.
He was like, I got to show you guys something. I got to show you something. So actually, I was pissed off by this guy, but I liked him because he was cool, but he kept talking shit about my T5s. So here's how many T5s I have just right here. That's hundreds of
traps. Is that going up?
These are new.
Oh,
these are new. And in my grow system, I do have T5s. I do have halides, and I do have light bars and T5s. So where I'm going with it is, I was kind of pissed. I'm gonna prove Jim wrong. And I did send you the spectrograph of a 10K, and you're like, okay, that's different than the needle graphs I saw before. But then I started thinking about it, and I was watching 40-Year-Old Virgin where they're smashing the fluorescent light bulbs in the back of the that's what happens. People don't want to recycle these things, so they smash them, put them in their garbage bin. So now that mercury's everywhere. So Frank, what I did basically was like, okay, my patent centers around getting closer to T5. You'll never get to T5 with current technologies of LEDs. I think you will get, when you have a printed strip of exact spectrums you want, you'll get there. But right
Please
now,
hold. I just got a text. Oh, go ahead, keep talking. I'm gonna type.
all right. Well, that's what inspired me. Was Jim's right? This is bullshit technology. You know, all those bulbs, I took them out because I was cleaning up my stuff.
Keep talking.
I had a mound of cardboard that filled from my sofa to my piano that my kids were jumping into like leaves. And that was the packaging from those bulbs. I'm like, man, this is all wrong. This is all wrong. And so that's what inspired me. And that's why you're going to have 4 different spectrums to choose from, because I want you to choose these like T5s.
Right.
And you know, Frank, for your, you know, those marijuana flats, you know, if you have 12 inches between the lights and there's enough clearance to work on them.
Yeah.
You know, mine are going to be at 15 inches, which you're going to probably go to 15 inches too.
Yeah, my current T5s are like 9.5 inches above the water.
So they are designed for residential use to be 9 inches above, and they'll work great. I did that on purpose because it also mounts with radions and shit like that. But for guys with marijuana vats, the 15 inches works perfectly too. And you get crazy coverage and spread because you're using a 120-degree lens that's frosted. It's very important. This is part of like my core technology is this frosted bulb. So yeah, so I'm hoping you can get 4 or I would go 5. Personally, I'd go 5 because I could do 2 Mezzo Blues, 2 Reef Crest Daylights, and 1 OG Pop. So if you want to go pictures, turn the OG Pop on. That single bar will spread over your entire tank. But yeah, I hope people with these, I hope people that are growing corals are like, you know what, I don't need this controllability. It's just stupid. I can set them up on $5 timers and then
just be done. What's the
that OG Pop? What is that Kelvin on that generally? Is that in the...
it's the 450, 470 like Reef Bright.
Okay.
So what's the energy look like compared to? I've got an 8 bulb T5 right now, right? Is there gonna be massive energy gains? Because here's my new problem. I keep getting a power bill and it says you're using 3x what your neighbor's using, and my wife keeps seeing it. So I'm on a power like hunting spree right now, right? So T5s currently are killing me. I just got rid of my heaters. I've got a heat exchanger and my hot water heater. So I think my lighting's like my last hurrah.
So when you test brand new ATI 8 bulb with brand new bulbs, they're some of the most energy efficient light on this planet for growing things.
Sure.
But if you were to come back 200 hours later, so watt for watt or par for par, if you're using average used bulbs like in the mid cycle,
yeah,
Orphics are about 1.4 times more powerful than T5 watt per watt. Mine are about double, roughly double. So they use more power, but they're like one of them equals 2 T5s.
Exactly. I'm gonna have 5 instead of 8.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah, so that'd be 500 watts. And your fixture is pulling anywhere from 640 to 700 watts currently.
There'll be a savings, and it doesn't degrade over time, right? Because my T5 bulbs are dead in a year, right?
Yes.
Out.
Yeah. So when I had Chris Clevin take my lights apart, and he basically is like, Luca, these things are built like nothing I've ever seen, and I'm like, that's the point though, is I went for a generic Chinese chassis, and all that stuff, but it's the details, the thickness of it, the thermal paste, the LEDs per length. So mine has more than any other LED bar on the market. So more LEDs, more efficient, less heat, more power from the same watts.
So you put those bulbs at a lower wattage, right? Just more of them?
So it's actually technically current. They're at lower current because I have more of them. And that rockets the efficiency. But
Should extend the life too, right?
Right? You're going to get double the life.
You're going to get a lot more life. Yeah. I'm only at 40 C junction temperature, which is 20 C below the optimum. You need to be below this to get life. So I'm way below that. And by having the more LEDs and the kind of behind my patent, which I can't really talk much about until I finally file for it. I did the search. We're good to go. I just need to file for it and pay them $5,000. It's a legit system that works. And in the end, you're going to get a 2 foot by 4 foot low boy with 3 of these 4 foot bars over it. That costs you $25. Will rock 350 par to 250 par across the entire thing. And the spectral blending, there's no hot spots of different spectrums. It's blended. So it will reduce your heat, yes, and 500 watts of LED put off less heat than the 700 watts of ATI T5 because it's slightly different. It's just the heat from the junction is going to the heat sink and leaving, where T5 is actually putting some of that heat into your tank. You can, if you go, you know what I mean?
Right? Yeah, and with the reflectors, it'll radiate back down as well, right?
Yep.
Prom over? Not prom. Homecoming over?
No, he's going to somebody's house.
I'm glad I made it through that period of time already.
We had to work through that.
You know what my dad said? Hey, Luke, don't think with your dick. I'm like, I don't know what that means, but all right, I'm going.
Alternatively, I said, use your brain.
Nice.
Same thing.
Hopefully it doesn't wind up in the same place, right?
So, Luke, am I going to have these for Christmas, or do I need to wait till next year?
Oh. Where is it?
The Quanta Pros are in line to be offloaded. They might even get offloaded this weekend. Those are the Quantas. Those are not the Quanta Pros. Sorry, the basic Quanta, and that's only in mezzo blue. So for people that have budget reef that want to add some blue that covers and spreads, and you can literally run it underneath your pool. You can throw in your pool and turn it on. That one is going to be here soon. The Quanta Pros, I am going to do a hybrid shipping method to get some in. And all I can say is right now, all hell is broke loose in China and America's ports. And things aren't really adding up. So I think this is more an American government versus Chinese government type thing that I'm not going to figure out. And I quit trying. I'm looking at some innovative solutions to get some here before Christmas. Cause I mean,
driving to Canada.
I ordered these things. I mean, we built them a long time ago I was thinking having them here in October,
So where can people buy them once you have them out? You got a website up?
Yeah, so we're building the website, and it's going to host all the files that Chris has developed for all those cool mounting options. So, yeah, dude, we're rolling like Tesla. I'm going to sell you the lights. I don't want to make any money on the mounting shit. I'm going to give you a 3D model of my light so you can build whatever you want with it.
Yep.
Free source.
Yeah, or if you don't have a 3D printer, there's a lot of third-party 3D printer services out there that'll pick that up.
Yeah. But or just roll
or a buddy.
Just use T Dizzle's way and go get the Ecotech mounts.
But yeah, Frank, that's about. I'm super bummed about supply chain, and
you can't. But super excited. I mean, especially if you do have a 6-foot version that can just plop right over that.
Yeah,
awesome.
I got a 6-foot tank too. I can't go with anything less. So,
that's pretty awesome.
I'm waiting for that.
That 6 foot's going to make a difference.
Rob will probably be the first person to get the 6-footers.
because I know where you live. So.
Yeah. You mentioned you
I'm
have some
showing up
torch
with a
heads.
bucket for some calcium too.
You mentioned you have some torch heads, so I do trade lights for torch heads sometimes.
Right.
And Frank, here's the deal. Let's say you're gonna set up a 6-foot tank, the flat. I have them sitting here, and I'll run you experiment for free, and I will tell you, here's the spectrum under this mix. Do you like it? Do you not? Here's this, here's that. And then what's interesting is, for me, is I'm not going to give wholesale pricing. I don't get this. If Frank wants to buy 10 of these for his 2 frag flats, why does he pay more than someone that is an aquaculturist that's using the same lights for the same purpose? So call me basic, but if you buy multiple lights, I'm going to figure out how to make it fiscally advantageous.
Makes sense. Probably make it smart for LFSs to keep them too.
Got a question. First, Remy says, Remy Bahama Llama says he's going to visit you, Luca, and shoot that tutorial. Then he LOL'd, but I suspect you just make him do it. And then that'd be fun. Kyle's Reef says, how the Canadians going to get them lights?
So I've been talking to some brokers or something like that. You give them lights and they get them in and stuff. But weirdly enough, I heard USPS is the cheapest way to get lights into Canada. It's also the slowest and most ridiculous. But what I'm going to do with those is shipping will be on the buyer to get them in.
Please hold.
So,
could you drop ship? Because AliExpress bars are making it in.
Yeah, but they got all this fancy. They got like people doing that.
Yeah, I just wonder how that works.
Yeah, and I might go. I might go
that could
to
be another level, right?
Mm-hmm.
I might go to a drop ship kind of option thing. Just not that smart right now.
Got to be a
But
way.
there is. My focus right now is to get them and get the website working, get testimonial, so people, early adopters like Frank and Rob, use them and be critical and tell me. And then if you like them, let's get some testimonials. Let's get that freefluencer kind of voice out there. When you buy my bars, there's gonna be a personal note in there. It's gonna be, this is a small operation. You're supporting, my family, etc. It's real, right? Because that's what it is. And I think it's gonna kind of resonate. I'm not gonna make you sign up for some stupid newsletter. Can you please subscribe to my IG channel and share your results and share what you like about them and stuff? That's really what it's going to be about. So that's what I'm focusing first, but I'm working Canadian. I also heard if I drive them across the border myself and claim them properly and do all legal stuff, it's not that expensive. So there's courier services you can hire to go from here to Toronto and then to this warehouse and stuff. But now you're trusting God, right? Like, you have no control over this.
Yep.
Don't know what it's like. They're ripping you for 10-15%, which isn't built into my shipping margin, my price margins. But that's where I might just charge shipping and then direct ship them from America to Canada.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Those rules suck. It has to suck.
Yeah.
I'll jump in the motorhome. We'll load up the RV.
Oh, I like that. Reefer road trip with some bar.
What? Gonna need some.
Dude,
The way you keep talking, you're definitely gonna have a trailer.
if we're loading a trailer, we're not selling lights. We're making that blue stuff that Walter White was making. Okay.
Wait, that wasn't cow milk?
I think it was.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw an episode of cow milk.
So, Frank, let me ask you a couple questions real quick, just because it's kind of you're asking good questions. Why does the light appeal to you? Because it's just simple and it's an economical alternative, or what appeals to you about it?
Economical. I was already Ali bar, so I've got 2 over my display with my radions. I built this frac, so I followed dude Fish a Hex on YouTube, right? He did the coral flat. I was like, yep, I've got a hydroponic shop. I got to do that. So then you come up to the conundrum. How am I going to light this thing? I'm a budget reefer through and through. Built my own sump out of PVC, right? So the cheapest option was 8-bulb T5 system, right? From Amazon. Throw some ATI bulbs in it and call it a day. Already had 3 bulbs go out. So that cheap solution is now an expensive solution. That's a dying solution. So what am I going to do? Am I going to spend $4,000 on radions to cover it? I can't get, I could get some cheaper lights, but I don't need controllability, right? Right now, the tank turns on, 12 hours later turns off. So, I mean, the first thought was grab some LE bars. And then you started talking about your new system, and I'm like, all right, we got to at least test it out, right? It's in that price point that's going to hit it for me, and it's going to get that coverage that I need. If you're saying, your focus is a 1-for-1, T5 replacement, I mean, I pulled most of my acros on my getting better growth in my frag tank under the T5s than I was in my radions. So that's what I'm kind of looking for. Now, I'm getting different coloration out of my acros in there under T5s than in my radions. A lot more pastel. But again, I'm not running heavy blue. It's not Windexy down there, right?
Yep.
So it's a give and take. I kind of like the pastel look, but T5s are going out, so I need something, right? If I'm going to start buying new bulbs again to repopulate that, I'm halfway to a set of your bars, right?
Yeah, and like what's interesting you talk about is so all those T5 bulbs I worked a ton of different combinations, and Jim, you already know, you saw the prototypes spectrum. It's the closest to ATI Blue Plus out there.
It is that old fat with a pH blue that we want.
Yep.
Blue Plus and 2 Coral Pluses thrown in there, right? Just to spread it out a little bit.
Yep.
And that's what so if you go 1-1 Mezzo Blue with Reef Press Daylight,
that's what you get.
Yes.
But you get way better CRI color rendering of your whites and stuff.
Not,
so it's
not dull.
Not dull. Not dull.
No.
The spectrum's impressive.
If you want to get real nerdy, the additive quantities of the blue spectrum of the Reef Press Daylight and the Mezzo Blue actually will give you the fat blue, but also the pop at the same time. So I went deep into it. I made about 6 prototypes, and I added the OG pop because at the end of the day, if you want your corals to just look really cool, the Mezzo Blue will not do that. It will actually change the way they look. If you're an old school reefer that had actinic lights, you're going to love the shit out of it because it brings out those colors.
You want them to fluoresce a certain way. Hey, that's your look. That's your tank. You at least cover that base. That's good.
Yeah,
Well,
and if you go,
right? I'm going to have that because no one local wants my Blue Plus photos, right? They want to see it under deep blue, right? I'm going to have to unplug everything and have a deep blue, fluorescent all over the place that,
You're going to have to live sale those up.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is if you run the OGs and the Mezzos together, I actually think it makes, personally speaking, easier to photograph, and the colors are crazy, good, awesome, like basic anicoporas, like the green goblin or whatever, the tropic sunset and stuff like that. Those under the Mezzos look fake. My Acan under the Mezzos looks fake. And then what's interesting is the wider blue actually fluoresces reds and oranges much better. So if you have a lot of corals that have the red, the bounce back, so it comes in cyan and it goes out red, most blue bars don't have cyan, and most actual bars don't have cyan really in any measurable quantity. So when you get that, you're gonna get reds, and so some of your millies or some of your digis, like Monopora, Jim. Monopora, man, under Mezzo Blues, if I had a Monopora tank, I'd just put pure Mezzo Blues on the thing. It looks fake. It looks like Candyland.
Mm-hmm.
So for all of the influencers out there, you mentioned photo. Is there any flicker with video? Because I know you can get some pretty cheap LEDs, right? They'll start flickering with your video.
You don't have any PWM.
No, it's pure.
There won't be flicker. It'll be like LE bars. There's no flicker.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool.
Yeah, flicker sucks.
Someone told me, he's like, hey, Luca, if you had OGs on one channel, your mesos on one channel, and Reef Press Daylights on one channel, in Amazon, that would be $16 to get outlets that you can control and controlling your phone on and off and stuff. I'm like, that's cheap.
Looking at that,
That's plugged here.
about having a high intensity time during your day, right? So ramp up, right? Low intensity start, high intensity day, low intensity.
Hey, Chris says that he puts it behind his door as a weapon.
My Alkatronic just went off.
Uh-oh.
So
Oh,
I don't know if is that
It can't figure that out.
Ah, shit.
So,
Yeah. So we were talking about lower consumption. So at 1 o'clock today it was 7.21, right? So at 9 p.m. here Central Time it's 7.18.
Mm-hmm.
But for all the way back to the
I got one right here. I'm going to show you a prototype.
Show it, and then this is where we'll wrap up.
Yeah, we need to wrap up, but watch this. Watch this.
Uh-oh.
We're going to do fun. All right. You see me?
You're gonna stir your calc with that?
All right. All right.
That's where you can.
Where's that fan motor?
You
it's rusted.
You guys see that?
Which one's this?
That's Team Milk.
Which light is this?
This is the Meso Blue.
All right, now plug it in.
We plug it in?
No, we believe you.
anyways,
That's the Pro.
You can actually stand on it.
I can't.
It's weird.
It's
weird.
I got 30 pounds on you.
So we're gonna do some nailing nails into 2x4s with my Meso Blue while it's working. And
please stop. Can you office space an old printer with your Meso Blues?
Oh,
1,000%.
I have an old printer.
It's good to be a gangster.
Meso Blues lit.
Yes, please make that happen.
That'll sell well.
Okay.
I was actually, what I want to do, Jim. Would this be bad?
Yes.
Take my right.
Don't sidetrack him. He still owes us a calc out there.
You can't say other names. Don't say other names. They'll get all butthurt. The RB flying monkeys will come
Do you hear
showing
that?
up.
Do you hear that?
What?
That's what the adapter is making. It makes this chirping noise. I think it's gonna start on fire. But I kind of want to destroy one with my bar. Just destroy it.
That's easy. There's not much going on there.
No, it's not that fair. Well, dudes, it was I think this is a good talk, and we had fun.
Frank, it was nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on, Jim.
You guys are awesome.
Yeah, come talk to us on Discord.
Remy's yelling at you, Frank.
I saw that. I mean, St. Louis likes their blues.
Sounds like you and Remy are going to get together. That's cool. I met him in a parking lot. It wasn't at all shady. And he's a good dude. He is one of the people that I'm super psyched that BRS picked up.
For sure.
I like that. That was good.
Remy's Bahama Llama, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's. I think what's interesting is we can end on this. BRS, I think, might have not realized, let's be honest, the stick lady was BRS sponsored, okay? Mm-hmm. Huge pyramid scheme, whatever. I think BRS is like, we definitely need to reevaluate what we're doing here, and I respect them for that. And Greg and Brandy were really talking about that too. So again, it's kind of funny, but I hate the BRS pack logo. I hate all that shit. But my respect level for BRS keeps going up. Their recent videos.
I agree.
Hey, they're gonna try some stuff. Some stuff's gonna work.
Yeah, some stuff. Yeah, some was.
As long as they make course corrections, then
agreed. I like their recent vids.
Totally. A lot of props. So I'm excited, and I think Free Influencers and Reef Pack will eventually become friends because we're in it together. We're expanding. Ryan wants to expand the hobby. He wants to keep people in longer. That's what we're doing here too. So really, our vision is the same as BRS. That's really where we're at.
10 years from now, you can turn around and then you'll know who the Rat Pack really was.
That's true. I think Ryan at heart is totally still a reefer. And he just happened to do it the right way.
A very good guy.
Yep.
Very good human.
Agreed. All right, y'all. This one
gentlemen.
ran all over the place. But I
gotta go set up my NFL app for the game tomorrow.
But I appreciate your time. I'm gonna see what's going on downstairs. Frank, tell everybody who you are. Run through it real quick.
Frank Aaron from St. Louis. Got a 220-gallon tank. Still thinking about calc milk here. So.
Right on.
Rob Busick, Wisconsin, 180-gallon, just a regular Joe reefer, having fun.
And we're both part of the Discord group. For anyone in chat that's not on there, it was $1 Telegram's Patreon to get on, and we're having a lot of cool conversations about, Rob, some 3D prints he's doing for calc milk. There's
anybody who wants to try that manifold I got cooking up. If you feel like putting it on your tank, let me know. Reach out.
Yeah, come hang out with us.
We want to get some people testing this.
The Patreon is $1 a month. I'm very transparent about what I do with that money. I post once a month what I spent.
Just a gateway for drive-bys.
Yeah, right.
Jim, I owe you an apology with all the bullshit with supply chain. I haven't done that for you, and I haven't been very active on Instagram supporting the team. I like to support the people that support each other. You know what I mean? So I need to get into that. I need to.
Happy to have you.
And just do it. Oh, and I'm going to ship you the Qantas to start testing after my photo shoot. So I need to do that.
Are you still trying to get Swolt for that photo shoot? And Luca, go ahead and explain who you are.
Luca Martino. I have a Pico Reef. It's no, I'm a failed aquaculture guy. So my story began as I wanted to be a low cost solution local to sell frags, and then I realized how hard it was, and that I don't like all the time, and I don't have time to do it. So I started saying, what can I make that will help people grow corals better? Teamed up with T5 Elimination. Here I am, and I also like to invent stuff like fan motors that mix calc milk that go
well. Hey, Jake, real quick. You don't need them to test the Metris. I tested the Metris, and I can provide that data all day long if you want. I think there are rules behind testing. Don't hold that against them. If you need data, I'm happy to provide that. And also, thanks for the super chat. I'm one of the assholes that everybody talked about earlier. I don't reef. I have freshwater tanks, and I just buy stuff, and I make this all up. That's all.
Thanks to Luca, I'm growing sea monkeys now, so that's.
I'm Team Sea Monkey too. Started today.
Was that you who posted that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
I was awesome.
My comic book said that I can teach them tricks, so once you figure out how to make them do tricks,
I remember those sea monkeys and teaching them tricks and stuff. But Frank, I encourage everyone to share with me your voyage. I am noticing the bacteria that go in with the shrimp is significant, and it could be a contributing factor why my polyps are now like this when I put it in. I don't know.
So a question came up. I was trying to sign off, but obviously that's not working. The sea monkeys feed LPS and SPS, yes?
And
if you feed them when they hatch right away.
Right.
Kind of curious
without mouths or buttholes. That's what Luca told me. No mouths, no buttholes, throw them in.
Although you can grow them out for fish, which I might play around with.
Then they'll have buttholes.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on, is growing out some to feed my copper band.
Oh.
So I split the hatch in half every day. And
He's a beehole aficionado.
Yeah.
So then you're taking half and you're propagating.
Yeah.
Lynn says sea monkeys plus white milky substance. Huh.
She's sassy.
Yeah, and on that note.
And we're growing in weed tanks. Yeah, I see where this reefing's going.
So I think anyone that's out there, we're all very active on Instagram, and really a lot of us on this chat will respond to you
and interact and we want to learn, the more people let me know they're working on sea monkeys and things like that, it helped. I'm getting hints like, Jim, those hatch rates I'm getting now.
Yep.
That's because a reefer's like, dude, put 4 drops of bleach in before you start up your system because it decapsulates all the eggs and then they hatch like crazy. And I did it and I was like, holy shit. And then the other guy's like, 83 degrees is optimal temperature. Started doing that. Amazing. So it's like people, when we share, we learn.
What was the salinity? 1.012? And you keep them all day long?
1.8,
1.019, and I'll show you.
Okay.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
To do is to frickin' just 5S it, dude. Look, fill to that level with water. Fill to that level with fresh water, and you're done.
See, Sharpies.
Yep, Sharpies. I see it. Team Sharpies.
I told you he was a tech guy.
Team Sea Monkeys. Team
Hey,
Milk.
let's hashtag it. It's Team Sea Monkey. Are we all in on this?
Yeah,
Team
no.
Sea Monkey.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that's good shit.
Yeah, I'm Team Monkey. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody who hung out. Thank you. This was huge, as always. I hope everybody's.
Do we have people left?
Yeah. There's freaking
like...
there's 58 people watching right now.
That's awesome. Those people rock.
I'd agree.
Yeah,
and be nice to each other.
All 50. I owe them some money.
Be nice. Whatever. Go reef. I guess I'll go learn how to reef now and be kind to everybody. Thanks, y'all.
Have a great weekend.
Take care, guys.
All right, y'all. You're cool. Thank you. I'm just gonna fumble my way through turning off this stream. Later.
Peace.
This was a long one.